Imagine being so strong that you literally run out of enemies to fight. That's Jin-ho for you. 37 wins, 0 losses. Bro was no longer fighting opponents, he was farming content. So naturally, when real life could no longer provide him that kick, he found solace in fighting a demon king in a game for 10 years straight. But here's where things turn upside down. He beats the monster, purpose gone. And the next thing he knows, he wakes up in prison, getting called 218 like he's an Amazon package. And if you're wondering how an MMA champion ended up here, yeah, it only gets worse. This isn't just any prison or some random isekai. 1,000 years ago, without warning, the world was invaded by demonic beasts who launched an attack on humanity. It was called the Great Demon War. To survive, humans fought back with everything they had, and a difficult, endless war raged on and on. The earth was soaked in blood. It had now turned into a cruel, ruthless battlefield. Outnumbered and overwhelmed, humanity began to falter. But just before they could be destroyed for eternity, a wizard appeared suddenly. No army, no backup. He rode a black dragon into battle, crushing any vicious beasts that stood in his path. His overwhelming power struck fear into the hearts of the monsters, and the people hailed him as their hero. Humans went from victims to spectators watching this guy solo the final arc. However, as suddenly as he had appeared, the great wizard met a mysterious end when the Great Demon War came to a close. He was called many names: the Chosen One, the one obsessed with strength, and the one who cannot be corrupted. He ended up as a legacy in history, and humanity awaited his arrival once again. Returning to the present, the MMA world eagerly awaits its champion Jin-ho Kim, who is set to defend his title for the 17th time. His record stands flawless, 37 wins, 0 losses. The crowd cheered as he made his way to the stage to face his opponent Patrick. There were talks about Patrick targeting Jin-ho's rumored leg injury. The bell rings, indicating the start of the match. Unbeknownst to the crowd, Patrick felt quite anxious about facing the champion. However, he consoles himself that if he grabs the opponent's leg, he might have a chance. But just as he was almost going to catch his leg, Patrick was sent back with a spinning back kick from Jin-ho. That was enough for Patrick to collapse. Jin-ho gives him a death glare, questioning if he gets why he doesn't use his legs now. The match soon ends in his favor. He ignores his coach's insistence and leaves without attending the press conference, walking off like he forgot to turn the stove off at home. As a result, his coach was left to pick up the pieces, but he could understand how the man felt. But the truth is, Jin-ho can keep fighting until he retires, but there probably isn't anyone left who can really challenge him. Jin-ho quietly makes his way back to his apartment, 18 miles away from the fight building, mind you. He swiftly takes a shower, tosses the towel away, and faces his giant LCDs. His eyes glisten in excitement, ready to play the PC game, Last Saber. The game is known for its punishing difficulty. Even the Korean players have given up on it. However, Jin-ho has played it every single day for the last 10 years, training again and again, an obsession. To face stronger opponents had once been his life's goal, but that lost its meaning in the real world long ago. In this world, though, he could feel that excitement of being the challenger, facing the odds again. He had been having some difficulties defeating the Demon King, Izar. It was thrilling. Minutes pass by, and he continues to battle with the Demon King. However, he becomes shocked to see that the lifeline of the Demon King is pretty low now, and he could actually have a chance to beat him this time. He becomes irritated to see that the monster is not even fighting back. His pattern was way too simple today, and his attacks were landing so well. Jin-ho challenged the Demon King because he wanted to win, but ironically he feared winning the most. Man really started rooting for the boss mid-fight like, bro, don't sell me like this, fight back. But to his dismay, he eventually ends up defeating the Demon King. With that, the game comes to an end with Jin-ho finally becoming the champion of both worlds. The multiverse had come crashing down with Jin-ho as the bearer of the impact. Frustrated by his victory, Jin-ho smashes his PC, questioning his next challenge. Suddenly, thunder rumbles. A storm erupts, plunging his world into darkness, as if reality itself is responding to his despair. Jin-ho feels dizzy, and his whole body is burning. He eventually wakes up and finds himself outside with rain pouring down on him. Someone addresses him as 218 and tells him not to space out, as they have to get out of here right now. Confused, he wonders who the stranger is and sees them wearing a number 172. Shocked, he looked, scanned his surroundings, and saw himself in a prison. All of the prisoners were rushing towards the exit gate. That's a flag on top of the building, and for some reason he finds it pretty familiar. 172 tells him that this might be their last shot to escape this hellhole called Kellywin. It is at this moment that Jin-ho Kim finally realizes what this place is. This is where everything goes completely off the rails. Jin-ho watches as the prisoners begin to pull on the ropes in order to open the door and escape. While 172 pushed him towards the gate, Jin-ho was completely out of it. He couldn't believe he got pulled into the game he was playing, that too as a prisoner. Though he has a ton of questions, he knows he must get out of here first. However, he suddenly halts, confusing 172. He points out that something feels off. If this is really Kellywin, the security shouldn't be this sloppy. That's like a final boss forgetting deciding how to attack. Suspicious doesn't even begin to cover it. 172 answers, that's because Warden Clark isn't here. However, Jin-ho begins running towards the other side, dragging 172 along like a man who has just read the script ahead of time. He could understand why everyone was taking this chance to escape, but his champion instincts are telling him that he must never cross that gate. The moment that door opens, prisoners rush out like it's Black Friday and freedom is 90% off. 172 struggles to be freed from Jin-ho's grip, but to no avail. Lucky 172. The once ecstatic prisoners were now losing their limbs. Warden Clark peekaboos them with tons of other colleagues ordering a full-blown extermination. Jin-ho, or let's just say 218, continues rushing to safety with 172, stating it's a trap. For the next few minutes, they heard screams of terror and anguish, sounding like cattle being slaughtered helplessly. After the wardens were done with their business, they had the remaining prisoners lined up. 172 couldn't help but puke, seeing the dead bodies. The warden pulls at their hair for daring to move and orders the killing of anyone who moves from now on. 218 was stunned to see that Kellywin doesn't even offer mercy to kids. It feels like another massacre could happen at any moment. If that happens, he will have no choice but to fight. Clark soon towers above him, calling him either lucky or gutless for not running. Clark then degrades them all, calling them cowards. He then lands closer to 218, saying Alarhan will regret surviving today. 218's eyes widen in shock, wondering if he was just referred to as an Arahan. From world champion to underweight side character. Tragic. A week passed by, and 218 continues living the good old prison life. The only routine he had here was stacking rocks, a pointless task handed out just to torment prisoners. Over the last few days, 218 has figured out a few things about this body, though. First, it is ridiculously weak. Even moving a single rock like this nearly kills him. Second, he is 15 years old here. He tries using magic under the cover of night, but it doesn't work. It is strange an Arahan who can't use magic. Makes zero sense, as Arahans are supposed to be the strongest mages. It is then that he realizes that this must exactly be why they abandoned him here. He continues working while seeing an annoying system window that continues to load the synchronization process. It was now mealtime. With food like this, 218 is certain he won't bulk up anytime soon. While most prisoners avoided him like the plague, 172 was the opposite of it. The Arahan clan is the most powerful of all mage families. They all have red eyes, a symbol of the clan, which is said to be a curse for taking too many lives. It is also rumored that looking into their eyes means death. They are about the same age and share a room, and 218 doesn't remember anything from before he took over this body, but they must have known each other for sure. Still, he wonders how such a young kid ended up in Kellywin prison. He is cut off from his thoughts as 172 begins warning him to stay out of trouble. Apparently, a lot of prisoners are angry because 218 has been making their workload heavier by working so hard. 218 now gets why he has been getting all those death stares. 172 tells him to keep a sharp eye out for inmate 589, who's kind of like the boss around here. Apparently, that guy used to be famous in pit fights and is in here for murder. When 218 asks if it isn't dangerous for them to be around him, 172 says he can't simply ignore him, as they have known each other so well. As all footsteps rush towards them, 218 realizes what 172 was worried about is about to go down right now. 589 shoots daggers at the two with his sidekicks in the background. We got to applaud 218's confidence as he stood against the mighty figure, but only to be punched to the ground. But he wasn't stupid. He grabs 589 by the shirt and kicks him in the chin, shocking everyone present. But 589 was built differently, proving just how weak 218's body is. 586 confirms he is dead meat today, pushing him to a wall. Just then, the annoying system window appears once again, but this time, it reveals that the synchronization is completed. 218 scoffs. Things are about to go wild. He goes through a full-blown factory reset, stronger biceps, legs, and mana power. A different man now. He smirks, provoking 586 to come at him again. 586 laughs. Of course he does. From his perspective, the same weak kid just got punched into character development and is now acting brave. 218 tried kicking him, but 586 instantly grabbed his tiny leg. However, 218 spins and kicks him in the head. Bro starts cooking him with kicks like he's been waiting his whole life to bully someone legally, until eventually he falls to the ground in defeat. 218 death glares, saying this is exactly why he doesn't use his legs. And of course, the backup squad gets emotional and charged at 218. But they immediately halt as 218 threatens to yank their boss's arm off. Survival instincts kicked in, and suddenly everyone remembered they had families to go back to. They back off. Smartest decision they've made all day. 172 beams in excitement, questioning when he learned to fight like that. that. He then notices how 218 seems oddly taller, wild because puberty doesn't usually hit mid-fight. 218 has realized that the system was sinking. His real-life stats are impressive in the game world, but still, compared to his old body, this one is a scrawny kid. He instantly checks out his stats window and comes to know his name in this world is Zed Arahan. To his shock, he had stunted growth and had 0 mana. The one thing his entire bloodline is famous for, he doesn't have. Imagine being born into the strongest mage clan and spawning with no magic. That's not bad luck, that's a personal attack from the universe. It's actually so bad he just starts laughing. But 172 becomes worried for him, wondering if he has finally lost it. That night, Zed lay in his bed, wondering if a character like this really existed in this game. No wonder his family tossed him aside like he was nothing. He decides to calm down and take another look. At least strength, agility, stamina, and perception are all maxed out at 100. But even without it, he doubts he will fully benefit from those starts with a scrawny body like his. Basically, he's a Ferrari engine inside a broken bicycle. He should be able to eliminate the penalty with training, but the food here is terrible. Additionally, he has never encountered some of these traits before, and they're all S tier. The only ones he recognizes are poison immunity and immortal gambler from his playthrough. If it were not for 0 mana, this would have been an OP character. As for the blessing of the archmages, this trait is practically a joke. At this point, anything related to magic is just there to mock him. He guesses he will have to figure the rest out later, and there might still be a way to fix the mana issue. He is cut off from his thoughts as the guard has some of the inmates line up outside for their last meal. Yeah, that's a thing here. Eat whatever you want and then die right after. Peak hospitality. But instead of being horrified, Zed smiles, because in this messed up system, that's an opportunity for him. As they converse, 172 reveals his name is Ryu. Apparently, Ryu doesn't plan on staying here for long and has a reason to break out. He reveals how there is only one exit to the main gate, and the warden holds the key. Ryu is taken aback as he finds Zed planning on taking the strong warden down. Warden Clark is a knight who despises magers. In the world of the Last Saber, knights and mages despise each other, and so Zed wonders if he can really beat a retired 5th Circle knight in this state. Like generational beef levels of hate, so Zed, a mana-less mage, is trying to fight a knight? That's a straight-up funeral arrangement. Ryu suggests that they steal the key. He speaks, as a matter of fact, about how street kids learn to pick pockets before they learn to shake hands. But the warden is always surrounded, so there has never been an opening. After some contemplation, Zed starts to see a way out of here. Then the next day, the inmates were frustrated to learn that their workload had been increased from today onwards. Even the warden hints at Zed Arahan being the reason that this is happening. As if on purpose, he then excuses himself to go smoke for a bit while the furious inmates begin to surround his head. He could tell that the scumbag Clark is openly trying to provoke a riot. Since he cannot get his hands dirty himself, he is using the other prisoners to kill him. Ryu dashed for cover on Zed's signal, praying he'd survive. The inmates snarled, refusing reason, and Run lunged, fists tight and teeth bared. Zed met each attack with raw, measured power, dodging punches, countering with sharp jabs, and tossing bodies aside as they piled on. Zed braced as the mob rushed him all at once. He sidestepped a punch, spun behind another inmate, and threw him into the next opponent. Each move was deliberate, blocks, counters, and swift combinations. The chaos matched his old octagon fantasies, no waiting turns, just relentless opponents testing his limits. Bro is having the time of his life in the middle of a prison riot with the inmates who kept coming to him. Ryu couldn't believe what he was watching, but he is soon called by 589. Zed continues to beat the inmates, having all his fantasies come true, including the thrill of dodging at the last second, and the rush when you land a clean hit. This was the very reason he got addicted to fighting in the first place. Though the inmates were coming at him ruthlessly, not giving him the chance to take a break, he was wishing for more and more. It was only when every last one of them collapsed to the floor that he was called from behind. He sees his friends struggling under the grip of 589, and he is threatened to just die quietly, without struggling. That is in exchange for Ryu's life. Zed shoots daggers at them with his eyes, coldly pointing out that they have made the biggest mistake of their lives. The inmate laughs at his face, not taking him seriously because, from his POV, a manaless Arahan talking big is basically comedy. He then lunges at Zed, saying a manaless Arahan like him is already as good as dead. To his shock, the kid disappears. In those few seconds, he had already saved his friend from 489. He was stunned as he thought the kid couldn't use any magic. Zed says he didn't and showcases his skills firsthand to the inmate, kicking him. Just then, Warden Clark appears and asks him to explain himself. Man pulls up like he's been waiting for this episode, asking for an explanation like he doesn't already know what he set up. It is then that 172 speaks of saying that it wasn't his fault. The inmates had taken him hostage and tried to kill him, so it was self-defense. Clark hides his disappointment at the unfinished job and questions Zed about whether he unlocked his mana. When Zed says he is not sure what's in, Clark begins to radiate his intense aura. It immediately begins to suffocate the surrounding inmates, including 172 who collapsed to the floor. Unlike them, Zed was not affected by his aura, which was truly odd because a regular person shouldn't be able to withstand the aura of a Fifth Circle Knight. It is then that the system window pops up, revealing he has a trait that grants immunity to mental attacks. He is the world champion in the real world after all, so it wouldn't make sense for a Fifth Circle nobody to intimidate him. This is the same guy who fought in front of screaming crowds, got punched for a living, and never cracked. You really think some retired knight's intimidation aura is going to scare him? Please. That's like trying to scare a horror movie villain with a flashlight. Guess the game knows what it is doing after all. Warden Clark, on the other hand, remains dumbfounded to see the kid still standing. Someone who hasn't even unlocked his mana is effortlessly resisting his power. He breathes deeply and locks in, radiating more aura to overpower the boy, but it only makes the other inmates suffer. Zed stood confidently with his S-tier trait in motion, probably mentally giving himself a rating like, yeah, mid. Warden Clark 0, Zed 1. Since the warden's other colleagues were also suffering from his intense aura, he had to stop. Zed was relieved that things didn't escalate because things might have gotten ugly if the warden pulled his sword in a rage. Before Clark would leave, Zed confessed he was sick of stacking stones all day and was done constantly watching his back, wondering if someone would come after him, so he has decided to die. 172 remains shocked, but Zed confesses he wants to be a death row inmate. Clark was also astonished and didn't believe him. As proof, they have Zed record it in a crystal ball. Zed also chose beef from Verdi as his final meal. The wardens were shocked, as it cost a lot. Beef from Verdi refers to premium meat raised on the open plains of Verdi in the southern region of the empire. In the game, it is one of the most coveted delicacies, described as beef so good it gives people inhumane strength. Since it could be a game changer for battles, there was even a quest in the game where you had to bribe an NPC with it. Zed has got a big fight coming up, and so he wants to eat while he still can, because he always wanted to try it at least once. He then points to Ryu, saying he is coming too and that they should prepare enough meat for both of them. Everyone becomes even more stunned as Warden Clark agrees to the deal. He affirms they're taking the life of an Arahan, and it is the least they can do. Poor old Ryu got drafted into death row like it was a group project. Anyways, Warden Clark told the two it will take a week to secure them beef from Verdi. Since then, Zed has been exempt from labor, given meals that guards normally eat, and had time to focus on training. Unlike him, Ryu couldn't understand why he was still working out when he was about to die. Zed is aware that the game has a special system. If one stat hits its maximum, all earned XP starts transferring to another stat, and all Z stats except mana are already maxed. This means any XP he earns now will go straight into his mana stat. The day soon arrives when inmates 172 and 218 are told to step out of their cell. Unlike Zed, Ryu was having the worst breakdown of his life. He cherishes his last meal tearfully. Zed agrees, as the flavor was incredible, but the effect was real too. It's like a floodgate of EXP just opened all at once. He was satisfied to have accomplished his first goal. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Warden Clark remains confused. He kept thinking about the day when Zed was able to withstand his aura, and his power had no effect on the kid at all. Though he is retired, he is still a Fifth Circle Knight, and there is no way a manaless child could withstand his aura. So he has been feeling off since that day. But just in case, he decides to check again today and pay him back tenfold for the humiliation. The Last Supper soon ends. 172 says he can die happy now, but Zed tells him not to just think about death yet. Now that he is full, he can feel the energy surging through his body. He could punch a punching bag all day right now, and he couldn't wait to test his strength out. Well, just in time, Warden Clark entered the room and was instantly rage-baited by the arrogant little brat. He places his hand on the kid's shoulder, hoping to see that smug face twisted up in agony. Zed is aware that the Arahan family is an elite family at the top of the magical world. Even a tiny piece of intel could be a huge find. Depending on what he learns, he might finally escape this place. He could sense the energy radiating from the warden's bracelet and realized it was a magical tool. Despite the warden's best attempts, Zed was not affected by the aura radiated. This only seemed to piss him off even more. He realizes that for his mana to have no effect on the kid, he should at least be a circle above him, making him wonder if he is truly a sixth circle. Or even worse, this could be the power of the Arahan bloodline. It is at this moment that his entire life flashes before his eyes. It took Clark his entire life to reach the fifth circle, but even after all that, he can't bring a kid to his knees. Truly humbling. Therefore, he called it quits and quietly revealed that the kid's execution will be carried out tomorrow morning. He suggests he enjoy his final night, as even someone from the mighty Arahan family cannot defy the Emperor's law. That night, Clark decides to record today's event just in case, so it might be useful for the other nights. He was exhausted as he had pushed his mana to its limit and used a magical tool too. And so, despite wanting to finish the report first, he dozed off. Little did he know that the entire situation had been an opening for the kids to steal the keys to the exit gate. While Clark was busy dealing with Zed, Ryu took it into his own hands to steal it. Zed opens his stats window, and notice how his strength, agility, and stamina all went up by 10 points. It seems the rumors of the beef's powers were thrown. Something was definitely different as his body feels sharper and stronger. He wants the penalty gone as soon as possible, but it will probably take some time. He tells Ryu how they are breaking out tonight, so he should rest up while he can. It is because he already knows the warden and that he would be sleeping by now. Zed had recognized that the bracelet the warden was wearing was a junk tier item. He doesn't quite remember its name, but it massively boosts mana while dumping all the fatigue on your body, and so the warden is probably passed out somewhere by now. He showed up at the final meal chamber with the keys and used a magic tool, which Zed did not expect. He made it much easier to execute his plans, thankfully. Now they could escape the hellhole quickly. Zed breaks through the cell, shocking Ryu. While the guards began to report to the warden instantly, Zed and Ryu took this as their chance to run away. The main gate was quickly blocked. Zed cautions Ryu not to stop running no matter what happens. Zed goes ahead and quickly deals with the wardens at once. They go crashing down like dominoes. He deals with the others as well, effortlessly kicking them all aside. Ryu marvels as he watches him go. In the end, they manage to successfully escape. Meanwhile, Clark finally wakes up from his beauty sleep, walks out, and sees his entire squad folded and the gates broken. Furious, he orders the inmates to be brought back. Zed and Ryu had now reached the outskirts of Carrion in Moda Village. They had been hiding from the guards in barrels and were relieved to have lost them finally. Ryu has them wear disguises so as not to be suspected. He believes dressing like a beggar is the safest disguise, as the place is full of them. He tells Zed to stay here and lie low while he grabs a few things they need. Zed was impressed by his unique way of thinking when he said they don't need money to buy stuff. As the boy leaves inside, he realizes how the kid keeps calling him his lifeline. An hour passes by, and he soon comes back with colored lenses. Ryu explains that red eyes are the mark of an Arahan, so he has to be extra careful. He explains that he got his blue lenses because this is Bahal territory, and this is all the rage here. Fashion meets survival. It is then that he remembers how his main character in the game was named Torres Bahal. In the game, the Arahans ruled the magic world, while the Bahals dominated the world of the sword. As one would expect from rivals who hate each other, even their eye colors were opposites. They crash in a haystack for the night. Peak luxury. That night, our protagonist ponders over his entire existence. He wonders how he ended up like this. He opened his eyes, and the next thing he knew, he was in a game, crashing in a stable, as a prisoner no less. While this doesn't seem boring, he couldn't understand why Ryu is with him. He even called him his lifeline, but he showed no sign of staying with him, as dangerous since the ward was targeting Zed. All he knows is that Ryu is just some street kid, a pickpocket. For now, he needs his help, but he wonders if he can keep trust in him. The next morning, Zed gets a reality check as he sees the kind of place they stayed the night at, and so he becomes determined to make some money, as they have to eat as well. Ryu reminds him that the guards are chasing after them. However, Zed already had a plan. He takes Ryu to the arena. The underground arena was a fighting place, something that our protagonist is good at. Zed enthusiastically watches the two bulky men gnaw at each other. The audience cheered, except for Ryu, who feared the place. Clearly, there has to be a PG-18 label somewhere. Ryu was flabbergasted as he sees the two men lash out at each other as if they had a past life grudge with each other. He tries to knock some sense into Zed, who has already disappeared and made his way onto the podium. He stops the guy from hitting the other ones, saying that he is unconscious now and he should stop. He then turns to the referee, questioning if he has been paid not to say anything. Even the audience held their silence in shock. Initially, they wondered if he was a noble, but Zed revealed he was just a beggar from the streets. The crowd was instantly filled with boos as they wondered what a filthy beggar was doing up there. Zed tells them all to shut up, saying he will fix the mode by fighting the guy over there. Ryu was truly done with him. This boy did not sign up to babysit a suicidal main character. He begins to lash out at him, but Zed wasn't having it. Instead, he smiles, suggesting that they get some beef after this to fill them up. With that, the match began. The crowd cheered for the big guy, Ikus. Ikus knew this kid was no match for him, but he found it strange that the kid was looking at him confidently, and his stance was completely different from others. It was tight, threatening, and stable, making him feel nervous. The feeling itself was screwing him up, and he lunges towards the kid, but is met with a punch in the face. As Zed continues to beat the hell out of the big guy, he also begins to advise him him on his every move. The audience was stunned while Ryu kept praying for Zed to come back alive. After all, he owes him a beef meal. It was shocking to see the beggar completely dominating a professional fighter. Ikas tries to land some punches dizzily, but it doesn't work. He was eventually beaten black and blue. The referee had no choice but to consider and declare the match over with the challenger as the winner. The scene shifts to later when Zed realizes that Ryu had not bet everything on him, unlike how he had instructed him to. Ryu confesses that he hates gambling. They get interrupted as a woman with two bulky guards approaches them, wanting to talk. Zed instantly recognizes her as a person the referee was eyeing earlier, seeing that the kids are not able to recognize her. She smiles. She introduces herself as the manager of the underground arena, Herna. But Zed was clearly not interested and began to walk away. However, her guards blocked their way and Zed was ready to fight. But seeing that they are not even flinching, he realizes they are very loyal to their boss. Herna scoffs, saying that the ones who beat her were personally scouted from a big city. She will let them go for now, but they will see each other soon and they will talk in a more comfortable setting. She then adds on how she is really into strong men. That's not ominous at all. Zed and Ryu pull up to a restaurant like two fugitives, pretending they're not one bad decision away from getting dragged back to prison. Ryu suggests not getting in Herna's bad books as the woman literally runs the whole city. Since they're staying here, they're bound to see her again. Zed called her greedy old fox, to which Ryu agreed, saying that is literally her nickname. Zed is aware that the woman probably approached him just to use him. It was the same when he first stepped into the fighting world. The moment he showed potential, numerous agencies came knocking on his door. However, most of them viewed his talent as a financial asset and took advantage of him on more than one occasion. He, on the other hand, was just a naive country kid with big dreams. Meeting his current manager was pure luck, and he is the one who made him into a champion. Thanks to him, he is no longer some clueless backwater rookie who is easy to exploit. He fought through everything and climbed his way to the top, a champion, and so he isn't afraid to face this old fox who likes to be cunning. Their order soon arrives. Bead from Verdi, of course, because apparently Zed refuses to eat anything else, like he's on a luxury diet while being broke. But before they could dine, Zed points out how the color and marbling are way off, therefore it is a fake, a Temu version of the legendary beef. He now realizes that things don't add up. If the real stuff took a whole week to source in prison, there's no way this random restaurant is casually serving it like fries. Ryu couldn't care less. Food is food. As for Zed, he decides to exercise his right as the consumer. However, the waiter was pretty rude to him. In order to stop Zed from revealing their scam antics, the waiter has both of them brought before the boss. Zed confronts him for selling fake meat. He continues provoking them until they finally begin to charge at him. It is that he uses his skills to effortlessly beat the big guys. The boss remains dumbfounded, wondering what just took place. He had thought it was a joke when people said Ikas lost to some bum, but it turns out it was true all along. Zed discloses that all he wants is fair compensation. First, he will give them back the money he took. Second, from now on, every time they eat beef here, the boss will pay for it. At Verdi's beef prices, of course. The boss was stunned and wondered what kind of daylight robbery this was. The scene shifts to the two kids being upgraded to a comfortable room. Thanks to Zed, they were living the high life. In the middle of the night, Ryu wakes up. After confirming that Zed is fast asleep, he walks out of the room. However, Zed discreetly observes this. A few days passed by. Fortunately, Zed and Ryu were still not spotted by the guards. Ryu watches Zed train himself non-stop and questions if he's training his body because he does not have any mana. Unfortunately, Zed's stats were still not going up. At this point, it really feels like a curse, but maybe going from 0 to 1 just takes that long. Creating something from nothing isn't easy. Once he reaches 1, he hopes it will probably get easier to climb. He had to be delusional in order to remain motivated, after all. After his morning workout was done, they headed out to eat. Zed suggests they get beef for the first time in a while, making Ryu happy. They had not visited the beef restaurant for 3 days. The reason was simple. Push too far, and they will get burned. More importantly, they ate 10 servings on the first day, so they had plenty of money left. When Zed asks Ryu how much gold they have left, the boy answers that it isn't much, as prices in the city are sky high. But Zed wasn't stupid, as he had played this game for 10 years. Ryu must really be thinking of him as some naive noble, clueless about the real world. He couldn't help but wonder what the boy was hiding, or if he was just being greedy. He is turning a blind eye for now, since he hasn't shown any signs of betrayal, but he cannot let this go on forever, not unless he knows the reason. The beef restaurant's owner, Zhang, soon learns that the two kids are back. He's a man whose pride far exceeds his capabilities, and yeah, his ego is still bruised from last time. Man got publicly embarrassed and turned into a free buffet sponsor, but this time, he was prepared for him. Zed and Ryu were escorted to a private chamber where meat had already been prepared for them, but Zed becomes suspicious as they were being nice all of a sudden. When he came in, he did not spot any assassins, and the interior was the same as before too. He decides to let things play out for now and takes a bite of of the meat. Shivers run down his spine as his mind clicks. He yells at Ryu to instantly spit out the meat. Turns out there was poison in the meat, but thankfully just a tiny amount like that won't kill. Apparently, Zed possessed another trait, poison. Immunity resists Prug's venom. If he didn't have this trait, he would have been dead before he noticed a thing. All that hellish effort finally paid off. When Ryu questions how he knows it was poisoned, Zed reveals it is because he is an Arahan. Zed smiles, saying they will make the restaurant owner pay for this big time. They summon the restaurant owner, who is pretty furious, but his mood brightens as he sees that the two kids have finished all the meat. Zed says he wanted to clear up a misunderstanding and also got some questions. With that much poison in their system, the effects should be kicking in right about now. At least that's what the restaurant owner thought. Zed suggests they eat some meat together and that he should think of it as a peace offering, but the restaurant owner was clearly hesitating. He flinches a bit when Zed points out that he might have added poison to it. Zed knocks down the table, and the restaurant owner sees all the meat on the floor, making him wonder if the kids have figured it out. Zed calls him out for daring to poison the meat. The restaurant owner continues to gaslight them, asking for proof. Zed took off his lenses, saying that this was the proof. The restaurant owner truly goes ballistic as he sees the red eyes of the boy. He had messed with an Arahan. His face turns pale, and he begins to tremble from head to toe. Certain he is going to die now, he instantly begs for mercy. He couldn't understand why an Arahan from the west would come all the way to a rural backwater town in the south and not reveal his identity from the start. Plus, why was he pretending to be a beggar? Nonetheless, he was so consumed by fear that he couldn't bring himself to ask the questions he had every right to. And as Zed watched the owner cry and beg like a child, he was once again reminded just how powerful the Arahans are. He makes a mental note to use the Arahan card once again, as the title has got some serious weight. When the restaurant owner begs to do anything in exchange for his life, Z tells him to never tell anyone about his identity. Second, he will give him half his fortune, and he will let today's event go. The restaurant owner was so scared that he instantly agreed and was deeply moved by the Arahan's great mercy, knowing he could have taken everything after killing him. Honestly, he's just happy to be alive. Ryu watches the scene unfold quietly. Zed suggests they leave the city tonight after they get the money. However, their plans come to a spoil as Herna appears. As she calls him impressive, Zed wonders if she knows he is an Arahan, but seeing how terrified the owner was, he realizes it couldn't have been him. There is only one place she could have gotten that information from them. If the restaurant owner finds Zed is just an Arahan by name only, he will lose the money too. Therefore, they need to move somewhere else. They eventually settled down somewhere private. Herna reveals that she does have some business with Zed, but today she is here to meet a client. Zed side-eyes Ryu, realizing it was him. Ryu apologizes, saying he wasn't trying to hide it. Herna says that she looked into his request, but it turns out she will need a bit more money. Ryu becomes agitated, saying he has already paid enough. Herna says that barely covers the day's meal for her, and it isn't easy tracking down a lost sibling, especially when you don't even know where they are or if they're still alive. Ryu begins to cry, feeling betrayed, as she was his last hope. Zed, on the other hand, gets the gist. He suggests to Herna that they tie those two matters together. Basically, if she handles his friend's request, he will hear her out. Herna agreed with the condition and bluntly told him that he had to fight Ikis again. That is all she wants. Despite Ryu's warnings, Zed agrees to a rematch. As they step out of the restaurant, Zed notices Ryu's long face and questions about it. Ryu apologizes for going behind his back. Zed assures him it's fine and that it wasn't worth getting mad over. He figured the help he gave him was worth that much, but suggests he doesn't do it again and tell him everything from now on. Ryu advised him not to fight again. They should just take the money and run as they planned. Zed asks about finding his family, but Ryu says Herna will just stab them in the back again. Zed realizes Ryu isn't foolish enough to trust someone like Herna, which means he was just that desperate to find his family. That is why he reached out to her even though he knew she was like a rotten rope. Unfortunately, Herna was exactly the kind of adult who would use a kid's trust to stab them in the back. Zed says he has changed his mind about leaving. He says when he sees trash, he just wants to clean it up, and besides, taking down someone who is giving their all is the most thrilling thing in the world for him. Meanwhile, at the prison camp, the wardens were assembling to form search parties. The enraged Clark sends out the lead unit, wanting to finish off Zed Arahan for good this time. 3 days later, Zed walks back into the underground arena. He watches Ikis, standing there way too confident for someone who got folded like a chair last time. That alone is suspicious. The rematch soon starts, and immediately something was off. Zed, Ryu, and the audience watch in shock, as Ikis Ikis copies Zed's technique. Bro really said if you can't beat him, download him. Ikis had returned to the ring because Herna guaranteed him a victory. He was told how Zed is a manless Arahan who had been abandoned in prison, making him regain his confidence. Ikis manages to keep up with his copied moves like a budget mirror match. Zed takes note of the ogre belt Ikis wore. That ugly, suspicious, definitely not drip belt around Ikis's waist was an odd item that only reduces physical damage by 90%. But since Zed's mana starts at 0, it is the worst thing he could be up against, which is why his opponent looks so confident. Ryu's already panicking in the background, because from his POV this just went from easy money to we might die today. But Zed, he smiles, suggesting he wait and watch. Ikis was taken aback as he watched his opponent change his stance, remarking that this is the moment he has been waiting for. Clearly, before he could process his words, Ikis was smacked in the head. As he continues to beat Ikis, Jin-ho Kim, the strongest man alive, was genuinely happy in this moment. No one had ever lasted a full minute in front of him, so he never got to fully showcase everything he has trained for, but the person in front of him was different and just looked at him. Still standing after all those kicks. For Jin-ho or Zed, this had never happened before, so he was obviously turned on. Zed continues using his kicks to beat the hell out of him. Ikis struggles to keep up, unable to even block him. To stop the big guy from saying he gave up, Zed continues to shower kicks at him, eventually breaking his ogre belt as well. With the ogre belt gone, Ikis wanted to give up, but Zed wouldn't let him. Nah, you don't get to quit early, not today. Eventually the guy faints due to Zed's sizzling gaze upon him. Just then, a strange alien feeling consumed Zed, like something was crawling under his skin. The system interface pops up, and Zed was happy to see that his mana stat had finally increased to 1. He feels a rush of endorphins flooding his body. Zed becomes confused as the audience was awfully quiet. He then realizes why. Apparently, he was not wearing his lenses, and his normal red eyes were visible. This revelation makes him wonder if the mana could have melted the lenses. Ryu points out that his eyes look even brighter, as if they're glowing. The audience, who were dumbfounded as they watched the beggar's red eyes, instantly recognized him as an Arahan and began to rush out of the arena in fear. Red eyes equals death flag. Before the guards could reach them, Zed and Ryu began to flee, but not before reminding the arena's manager to track down Ryu's brother. As for the arena's manager, she was frustrated and regrets not listening to the warden. Now, she was determined to rip Zed Arahan apart. Congrats, Zed. You just unlocked another enemy. Herna was absolutely losing it, which is understandable. The woman just got financially violated by 2 minors. First, Ikis was an A-rank fighter. She was scouted from the capital for a hefty sum. In addition, the ogre's belt cost 200 gold coins on top of the 1,200 gold coins she gave to the carrion warden. Girl math was clearly not helping now. All that just to lose her precious 2,000 gold coins. While the woman's breakdown continues, Zed and Ryu take time in grabbing the lens and money in a rush. But by that time, the town was already swarming with guards, and so they decided to hide for a bit before fleeing. They soon spot a carriage, and the man reveals how Lady Herna sent him here for them. She said she had some information to pass on, and asked him to escort them. Besides, they won't find any other carriages around right now. Despite knowing this is an obvious trap they got in, Zed knew this was a problem he was bound to handle sooner or later. Plus, running isn't really an option anymore. It was just as he had expected. A whole platoon of carrion guards and Herna awaited them on the outskirts. Man really pulled up like this is the final episode. Herna starts talking like she didn't just lose her entire savings, saying that things would have gone differently if they had agreed to work with her from the beginning. But Zed assures her that he wouldn't choose that path even if he could turn back time. Plus, he is not planning to die quietly either. Clark clearly seemed to think of himself as the main character as he orders Zed to be executed on the spot and tells others not to interfere. Ryu also stands back. Zed is aware he has a 50-50 chance in this fight. It is his personal mantra to stay confident against stronger opponents and humble against weaker ones. Even if Clark is a 5th circle knight, if it is 50-50, there is no need to be afraid. Clark was infuriated to see his arrogance and instantly charged. As he rushes with all that he has got towards the kid, Zed seems to be intrigued. After all, this is what he has wanted, to feel that fire again. And at this moment, he has become a challenger once more. His trait, Persistent Challenger, activates instantly, and his stats were temporarily increased by 10 points. His eyes glistened with determination as he swiftly calculates the man's charge. A huge explosion occurs, breaking the ground in 2. Sadly for Clark, Zed was very much alive. As a cherry on top, he had activated Transcendence, a lightning aura. Before he could have a proper breakdown, Zed instantly lunges at him. Clark tried to block him with his sword, but was overpowered. A lightning aura is a legendary power that transcends the elemental hierarchy of fire, water, wind, and earth. Admired by all mages, it is a force that even the founder of the Arahan family failed to master. So Clark couldn't understand that this pathetic kid was wielding such legendary power. Man's worldview is collapsing mid-fight. Still, ego won't let him stop. Even the other wardens, Herna and Ryu, were dumbfounded. Clark shouts how he despises people who rely on their bloodline and flaunt it. He swings his sword once again, but he is of course no match for Zed Arahan. Zed continues dodging it until he goes all out with his lightning power, causing pain to the warden. The golden and purple energy circles collide with each other like two egos refusing to log out. Clark was still having a hard time wondering what was going on. Plus, why is this kid throwing punches when he is clearly a mage? Mages cast barriers to keep knights at bay, and knights charge through them to strike back. It is the unspoken law of this world. That has never been broken, but this kid was different from the others. Bro switched roles mid-fight and forgot to inform his opponent, and so Clark knew he shouldn't treat him like other mages. If anything, he is the one who needs distance to swing his sword. He manages to distance himself, but Zed isn't going to leave him alone and instantly charges at him once again, making him unable to find an opening. Clark knew he was completely doomed, and he went flying back while his subordinates watched, utterly humiliated. However, he was still determined and told the wardens to stay back. He admits defeat and asks Zed to kill him. Zed asks if he doesn't want to know why he lost. Clark is mentally clocked out, but Zed isn't letting him take the easy way out. Nah, if you're going down, you're taking this reality check with you. He declares he worked harder and trained more than Clark. This only infuriates Clark, and he mentions that it is only because he is an Arahan and was born different. He begins to break down, saying that Zed will never understand what it is like to live as someone ordinary, with a most special talent, and that it is people like him that ruined his life. Zed calmly mentions that he is weaker than Clark right now. If only he had trained harder and handled the fight better, he would have lost for sure. But he let his inferiority complex take over, which kept him from moving forward. Basically, he tells Clark that he alone is the reason for his defeat. That one hurt. Clark sighs deeply, never imagining he would be reminded of chivalry by a young mage. He wanted to finish this off already, but this was a problem for Zed, because he would end up being wanted by the Empire. But he cannot just let this man go either. It is at this moment that his trait and skill deactivate. Herna speaks up, suggesting that this is their chance to kill him. Of course she does. Opportunist till the end. Zed was instantly swarmed with the wardens from all directions. However, just then, an intense wind surrounds them. That something's about to go very wrong kind of wind. Clearly, there is another mage nearby, which cannot be good. He tries his best to get out, but to no avail. It is only when the storm is over. His eyes almost pop out of their sockets as he sees the vision before him. Everyone was dead. Warden Clark. Even Herna. Zed wonders if the mage helped him, but now is not the time to get delusional. If anything, he could be blamed for all this down the road. Zed finally remembers that he had a sidekick and begins to look for Ryu. Thankfully, Ryu was safely hiding in the bushes. Traumatized, probably, but alive. Zed reveals that this was a high-level mage's doing and that they need to get out of here. Ryu, however, reveals there is a card on the ground, which must have been dropped just now. Unknown to them, someone kept a close eye on them. Later, Zed stares at the blank piece of paper. As he adds some mana, it reveals its contents. The symbol represents the black flame of the Arahans, which must mean the Black Mirror Squad is involved in this. The Black Mirror Squad serves only the head of the Arahan family, and their true size and purpose remain shrouded in secrecy. They are the Empire's most powerful and elusive secret organization. Zed flips the card to see the number 4. If he remembers right, 1 means yes or acceptance, 2 means no refusal, and 3 stands for deals or proposals. 4 means observation or protection. Zed remains astounded. Why would the Arahans be protecting him after throwing him like expired milk? However, he remembers that his mana stats had gone up by 2 after beating Clark. So just like in games, there must be an XP system here. He owned the skill of Transcendence, a spell that drastically boosts physical stats and creates a shield, but it was currently deactivated, probably due to low stats. He knew he needed at least 5 to activate it, or maybe all the way up to 10. Zed and Ryu begin to plan their next destination. Zed suggests Frilda, the place where Ryu last saw his sister. However, there were a lot of drawbacks. Zed suggests that they will need to change their route a bit and should head to Tamaya. Meanwhile, on the southern outpost of Tamaya, a knight teleports using a mana circle with his subordinates, all ready for the search. He was none other than Torres Bahal. As for his mission, he will be tracking down the Arahan who has forgotten their honor and delivering justice. He had been personally instructed to catch the Arahan and protect the honor of their family. On the Empire's outer rim lies a battlefront that holds back the demonic beasts. Each noble family is responsible for a sector, and the southern front belongs to the Bahal. Right now, Zed and Ryu head towards a village called Tamaya, a frontline outpost where demonic beasts occasionally breach the border. And the reason they are going there despite Ryu's pleas worries is because there is a transport gate there. It is so expensive that even nobles hesitate to use it. But hey, it's not like these two are short on cash. By night, they set up their camps, which were intruded upon by a certain vibration. They instantly put out the fire and waited for something to appear. Ryu fears it might be a demonic beast, but for Zed, he would almost prefer that. He could sense dozens of footsteps, and he knows there is no way the Bahal let that many demonic beasts slip past. He eventually spots a white horse with blue eyes and realizes they are the Bahal Knights. Even a rough count puts them at over 50. He prays for them to just pass by and keep going. But luck wasn't on their side, as the knights soon found signs of a campsite. Only those at 5th circle or higher can join the Bahal Knights. In other words, they are looking at 50 or more knights at Clark's level. Hide too long, they find you. Run, you get chased. Congratulations, you've unlocked the bad decisions only route. Ryu advises Zed to run, or he would be killed for being an Arahan. He suggests Zed not worry about him because they would not kill him, which is a crazy amount of faith for someone currently vibrating out of his body. Zed tells him not to worry, as abandoning a friend is not an option for him. The Bahal Knights soon scattered to find the perpetrators. Soon, one of the knights noticed red glowing eyes in the dark. Zed remembers how the card had mentioned they are supposed to be observing or protecting them. He decides to do it for the plot and walks out, introducing himself. He politely asks to speak to the man's commander like this is a networking event and not a manhunt. He gets a sword to the face as a response. Knowing the man wouldn't hear him out, he had no choice but to protect himself. As the man tries to strike once again, he is being blocked by something. Then a cold voice orders him to turn back. Zed remains stunned as he watches the scene unfold. He figured someone might be watching them, but he didn't know it would be this close. Even with his sense stat at 100, he did not notice a thing. No wonder this is the Arahan's Black Mirror Squad. The we exist but also don't department. The Bahal Knights were surrounded by the Black Mirror Squad. The Arahan leader threatened them to turn back if they didn't want anything bad to happen. However, Torres stepped forward, questioning who dares to block a Bahal's path. Zed's mouth gaped open in surprise as he knew that presence so well. It feels like part of him because he is the character Zed played the most in his original world and the one he fought with to the bitter end. This isn't the time, but it is sort of nice to see him in person. Torres spots Zed and questions his identity. However, Black Mirror squares off with Shield Zed and politely asks Torres to turn back. And if he leaves now, nothing will happen. Zed could see that they're clearly trying to protect him, but he does not see why they will go this far. Torres was clearly furious as he recognized them as the secret force of the Arahans. He questions if they really have the audacity to pull this stunt, knowing who he is. He yells that the Arahans have crossed the line and they will pay for threatening a Bahal with their lives. However, his aura diminishes as he and his knights were instantly surrounded by a red magic circle, a trap. One can step over it or avoid it entirely. Zed found it impressive that the squad placed it ahead of time, predicting the knight's path like this. And so he could confirm that the squad's leader isn't just a 5th or 6th circle mage. He is a freaking 7th circle mage. He calmly stood watching the knights and revealed that the circle would detonate if they moved their feet. Torres questions if the Arahans really want war with the Bahals. The squad leader stood calmly as ever, once again requesting them to turn back, saying that their lord wouldn't want this either. Torres, however, was agitated and prepared his sword. Zed, on the other hand, did not want this to happen at all. If this is still the early stage of the game, Torres should only be in the 6th circle, and the outcome is obvious. If a full battle breaks out here, Torres and his knights will be annihilated. He watches as Torres activates Roar of the Lion, his first secret technique. He hopes for the guy to snap out of it or he will die for real. He asks the squad leader to cancel the magic circle, but he refuses to do so, stating that he only follows the head of house's orders, and those orders were to protect Zed, not to obey his commands. Zed asks why he is trying to kill the Bahal heir, something beyond the squad leader's authority. With his skills, he could complete his mission without killing him. Man is arguing logic in a situation where logic left the chat 10 minutes ago. Zed also yells at Torres to stand down, but that guy wasn't having it. He accuses Zed of murdering the warden and innocent southern civilians, vowing to make him pay for his crimes. Zed tries to clear the misunderstanding, but halts as Torres charges towards him ferociously. Despite death knocking at his door, Zed was busy, wondering how the mana circle did not detonate, and it seemed the Black Mirror squad actually listened to him. As for Torres, he decides to go full suicidal hero mode, pierces through 4 layers of a 7-circle mage's barrier, even though he has not mastered his move yet. Zed is still alive thanks to the Black Mirror squad. As Torres starts coughing up blood, Zed realizes it is the backlash from using a secret spell in incomplete incomplete form. Zed calmly questions if he is happy now for using a secret spell when he cannot even handle it yet. Torres was shocked to hear that this kid knows about their family's secret spell, but he soon became unconscious. Zed reveals to the man's guards that it is mana reflux and that he should be treated immediately. Playing the doctor, diplomat, and damage control all at once is insane. However, Zed also knows that Torres' subordinates cannot save him because you cannot treat mana reflux unless your circle is higher than the victim's. The only one present who might have a higher circle than Torres is the Black Mirror squad leader. The man was stunned and a bit furious to hear Zed tell him to save the night. Zed makes up an excuse that Torres is an old friend of his. It also mentions that if Torres dies here, the Arahans will be unable to avoid an all-out war with the Bahals, and that will bring them no benefit. The squad leader suggests that Torres' death might actually benefit them, but Zed insists he is responsible for what happened. He then grabs a sword and places it on his neck, saying that his job will end here as well if he doesn't heal Torres right now. The man says the head will be furious if he hears about it, but Zed says he will handle it himself. And so, despite the knight's disdain and furious remarks, the black squad leader makes his way to Torres and begins healing him. Zed suggests this step aside if they want to save their lord. The knights were instantly relieved as their lord's mana circuit started to stabilize. Zed watches in shock, seeing that the black squad has left after healing Torres with only a card left behind. They make their way to the outskirts of Tamaya. Z watches the number 9 on the magic card, meaning neglect or survival. He fills in on everything to Ryu, who agrees that the Arahans might probably not be happy about this, and they might have just lost their strongest backup. Zed asks how he knows about the Black Mirrors squad, to which Ryu says, who doesn't know about them? He doesn't know exactly what they do though. Ryu suggests they lie low for now. Zed calmly says that if he were a knight and there were mages, he would already be dead. He explains that knights live for honor. Even if someone were a wanted criminal, killing the one who saved their life would go against their code. While knights sacrifice themselves for honor, mages, on the other hand, would kill a friend if it meant to gain. Both sides are extreme and irrational in their own way. But Zed believes it makes them easier to deal with, since all you would have to care about is honor with knights, while with mages, you just have to compensate them handsomely. Lord Torres soon summoned Zed and Rio. The man who had wanted to kill Zed badly was now serving him tea. As they get to talking, Torres learns that Zed is 2 years younger than him, 15 years old. Rio watches them talk like friends, which was pretty funny as one was an Arahan while the other was a Bahal. Torres gets to the point and says he owes his life. This is a significant gesture, especially considering that the proud heir of Bahal is thanking a mage. Zed has always liked that about Torres. Torres then questions the claims regarding Warden Clark's murder. Zed affirms it was a misunderstanding, and he explains everything from the prison camp to how he got here. Of course, he left out the parts about gaining mana stat and lightning aura. He says that since Arahan never backs down from a fight, he fought back when they tried to kill him first. Torres knew if what this kid says is true, it could be seen as self-defense, but the key is whether his story is actually true. He ends up believing Zed as the boy points out that he would have just let him die earlier if he weren't trying to clear up a misunderstanding. He then offers Zed powdered manar, a gift to apologize for the misunderstanding. But Zed says he would prefer a favor instead, help Ryu find his missing sibling because, apparently, this man is collecting side quests like Pokemon. Torres was surprised because, well, not very mage-like behavior. Zed says he simply made a promise to help and intends to keep it. The next morning, Ryu quietly watches his Zed work out. He cannot believe this guy used Bahal's goodwill just to look for some straight kid sibling. As the two talk about eating Verdi beef, Torres observes them discreetly. He was confused to see the mage working out. He has heard that Zed Arahan has no mana, and for a mage, having none is like a knight without a sword. And so it seems this kid is pushing himself beyond his limits. An honorable sight indeed. It is at this moment that Torres Bahal makes a decision. He would become friends with the mage, who was more knightly than any knight. Nothing bonds people faster than attempted murder and emotional growth. Ryu and Zed stare at the beef from Verdi like it's a religious experience, and offer thanks to Torres. While Torres mentions that it is a given since they're hosting an Arahan as a guest, the other knights were not very pleased. Zed noticed the round table with no seats of honor, making him even more impressed by Torres. The more he sees him, the more he likes him. The beef? Even better than prison beef. Zed was enjoying their hospitality, but he knew nothing in this world is free. Serving them such an expensive meal means that Torres is definitely expecting something in return. One of the knights stood up all of a sudden and excused himself, saying he was feeling unwell. The other two also stood up, saying they cannot stay here any longer. It is because they cannot tolerate the Arahan. Silence fills the camp. Torres apologizes on behalf of his men, but Zed assures him it is fine and he shouldn't punish them. Since they have seen mages as enemies their whole lives, it is only natural. Zed then suggests he get to the point. Torres requests that they delay their departure to Frilda for 1 day. It is because he wants his men to see Zed as a decent guy. With Ryu's agreement, they decide to stay. The scene shifts to one of the Bahal Knights, eliminating a low-tiered demonic beast and earning praise from Torres. Zed, on the other hand, wonders what Torres is thinking, bringing him all the way out here. He just went along with it for now, but the Lord gathered 20 knights and formed a frontline search team. Since the southern and western fronts are swarming with the demonic beasts, the search was no easy task. He quietly wonders if it is all for that party. It is Bahal tradition to hold a celebration for the safe return of all deployed units after a mission. He wonders if Torres is trying to make him part of this whole celebration. It is then that Zed is reminded of the fact that this guy is 17. This won't find unidentified tracks. Torres questions if anyone can recognize what kind of creature left them, but no one could. While the knight suggests they report this to the headquarters and head back as per protocol, Torres wasn't feeling it. Zed knew the knights were right. They should fall back, but only if they don't know what they're dealing with. He reveals the creature to be a basilisk, a mid-tier beast, but with Torres at the 6th Circle and 25th Circle knights, they should be fine. The knights were a bit skeptical about believing a mage, which ended up with a bit of a tussle between the knights and Zed, but Torres instantly intervenes. However, they are all frozen in their tracks as they hear a monstrous beast roar and make its way towards them. Torres instantly grows alert and orders everyone to prepare for battle. Apparently, there were 2 of the creatures. Torres instantly orders a formation and activates his power, attacking the creature from all sides, but to their shock, their attacks were not working. Zed knew their formation and discipline were perfect, but there was no way they were cutting through that with 5th or 6th Circle blades. Now it was the beast's turn to attack. Zed orders everyone to get down, and Torres suggests they follow his command. One of them was still being arrogant, so Zed practically yells at him to get down. He would probably have to thank the Arahan for his life, because just then the beast unleashed a spray attack on them by throwing venomous quills in every direction. Torres takes note of how none of them hit the ground, which means Zed knows what he's doing well. Zed explains to Torres how the creature's next attack is going to sweep low and will be hard. To dodge, therefore, they will have to finish them off before they strike again. Zed suggests that he and the knights will deal with the left one while he takes the other one himself. Torres seemed to blindly trust him and agreed, suggesting he not get himself killed. But it seems that Zed shared the same opinion about him, finding him pretty cool. They instantly get into formation, and Zed activates his persistent challenger trait along with casting transcendence. His favorite character is fighting so hard, so how can he just sit back? He instantly challenges one of the basilisks. He knew for a fact that the creature had only got one weak spot. If it were a person, it would be the crown of the head. That is exactly what he planned to crush, and he pounces on the basilisk's head, focusing all his power on it. The creature instantly collapses to the ground, and Zed is able to retrieve breath of the demon. It is a core ingredient for an elixir. If you pour holy water onto it, there is a chance it will turn into a full elixir. Normally, an elixir boosts random stats, but for Zed, mana is the only one left, so it is basically a guaranteed mana potion. He happily makes his way towards the other beast. On the other side, Torres was busy fighting the basilisks, but he had ended up straying too far from his knights. As the basilisk opens its mouth at Torres, it is instantly attacked by a golden surge of energy from behind. It was none other than Zed who pulled up with a lightning aura like, "Miss me?" Torres freezes for a second. What is this power? The knights were also astonished to recognize that light is lightning's aura. Torres was confused because he had heard Zed didn't have any mana. Zed reveals he unlocked it a while ago. The mana ring that surrounds the heart forms at birth. Sometimes circuits take a little longer to connect, but all are fully formed by the age of 6. But being manaless at 15 should have meant Zed never had any mana ring to begin with. That is like someone born with 9 fingers suddenly growing a 10th one. Nothing like this has happened in 1,000 years of imperial history. This makes Torres wonder if the heavens responded to Zed's will. He permits Zed to keep the breath of the demon, saying he is the one who haunted the demonic beasts, so the spoils are his. But Zed says this is enough for him and he can sell the hide. Zed was beyond happy, as he had never gotten to it once in over 10 years of playing this game. The word of the Arahan taking down an undiscovered beast with his bare hands and unlocking a lightning aura soon spread among the Bahal Knights. They accept the fact that this Arahan is clearly not like the other mages, who even gave up the beast's hide and even work out, breaking a sweat during their breaks. The knights were starting to formulate a positive impression of the Arahan. Even the knight who doubted him earlier ends up thanking him. Ryu was also stunned to see how the knights were treating him totally differently. Torres reveals how everyone who went out with him today will be joining the search in Frilda tomorrow. tomorrow. He himself has to return briefly to report back to his family, expecting backlash for cooperating with an Arahan. But even then, he promises he'll join them again, as he has promised Ryu to find his sister. Ryu becomes emotional and thanks them all. For the first time, things feel like they're moving forward. The next day, they arrive at Frilda. Ryu reveals his sister's name to be Lisa, who will be 13 this year. She has long blonde hair all the way down to her waist. Hearing this, Zed instructs the knights to check the slaves under the smaller noble houses in the city. As for him and Ryu, they decided to start with the merchant group Ryu worked for. After changing clothes, Zed was told about the place where Ryu used to work, the Hamil merchant group who framed Ryu for theft and threw him out. Zed decides to go in alone since they might recognize Ryu. Ryu agrees and points out how, dressed like that, Zed really does look like a noble. Zed is respectfully greeted at the entrance, but the man's demeanor instantly shifts as he sharply notices that Zed is not a noble. He reveals that this is a slave market and that to a noble, slaves are just goods. Plus, the real nobles never walk around alone. The man then mumbles that DeVito sent him here. The man tries to give him a beating, but he is the one who ends up with one. After torturing him a bit, the man ends up revealing that the previous owner of the merchant group went under, so they bought the building. As for DeVito, he is the biggest slave trader in the South. Zed takes some mental note that this guy's next on the list. He then asks for the people here, whom the man refers to as products, earning him another beating. He continues being punched in the face as he calls the slaves products. Zed was disgusted to see that they had locked people up in a place like this. Seeing it in person makes them angry all over again. He takes note of how there were no blonde children or young slaves. He knows that the young slaves fetch a higher price, so Lisa is probably already sold or at a bigger facility than this. Love that for society. He guesses he should go find the slave trader named DeVito next. But before chasing bigger problems, Zed decides to fix the current mess. He has the slave trader bring him every coin from the vault and the key to the cells. After freeing all the slaves, Zed locks the man in, suggesting he stay there for a while and see what it feels like. Zed ends up giving the slave trader's entire fortune to the freed slaves and arranges for them to stay at a place recommended by the knights. He shared a meal with the slaves and listened to their stories. Now, when you talk to people with different experiences, you often get lore drops, and that is exactly what happened with Zed. One of the men, named Gordon, reveals that he once served as an aide to the Sherville family, but when they fell into ruin, he ended up here. If the Arahan family represented mages, then the Sherville family stood for blacksmiths. Back in their prime, crowds would flock just to get one of their magic tools. However, they were suddenly wiped out by the Empire for treason. Now they're just a forgotten footnote in history that people steer clear of mentioning. That is how it was in the game when Zed played, and here as well. They left no known heir to carry on their craft, so it must have been a huge loss for the Empire with all the demonic beasts around now. Gordon then discreetly says he has a secret and that they should go somewhere more private. He then discloses that Lord Lacto, the rightful heir of the Sherville family, is still alive. Zed was astonished. Gordon reveals that the Lord's chief assistant died for him. He switched clothes with the assistant and set the body on fire to make sure no one could tell it wasn't him if everything went according to plan. Lord Lacto is hiding in Myers right now. Zed knew this was a total game changer. But even if the Lord survived, meeting him won't be easy since he is marked for life as a traitor. He thanks Gordon for telling him, hoping he will get the chance to meet him someday. Gordon hopes for it too, and reveals he's only sharing this with Zed because he has never met anyone like him before, and so he urges him not to put Lord Lacto in danger. They then decide to head back. As for Ryu, he seemed pretty down because they weren't able to find his sister. Zed assures him that they will check out the DeVito guy tomorrow and have some follow-ups. When Gordon hears the word DeVito, he panics, saying that he must not go after him because that guy is on a whole different level than the one he met. That too with a strong backing. But Zed seemed pretty confident, saying he had the Bahal Knights with him and there was nothing to worry about. Gordon sighs at his foolishness, revealing that DeVito's connections span across the entire empire. And there is a rumor that his biggest client is the Arahan family. Yeah, let that sink in, Zed, mister. I'm built different. Suddenly has to process the possibility that his own clan, whose name he's been flexing like a free pass, might be funding this whole mess. He says there is no merit for someone from the Arahan family in the West to come all the way down here to the South just to trade. Someone else says there is plenty to gain. More specifically, they will benefit from their enemies' losses. If they sweep up all the southern slaves, the local noble houses will be in trouble, including the Bahal family. It is now that Zed can actually see the Arahans doing something like this. He then wonders if the Black Mirror Squad must be guarding DeVito. If so, they won't just be taking down a slave trader, they will be sparking a silent war between the Bahal and Arahan families. face. Ryu seems to worry, which Zed notices. It tells him not to worry as he is doing what is right. He knew that either way, the slave trader had to go. The next day, Zed arrives at DeVito's slave trading house. Zed instantly marches inside the building. As guards began to threaten him, he revealed his red eyes, and they instantly recognized him as an Arahan. Their demeanor suddenly shifts, and they begin to apologize to him. Just then, a man appears from behind and goes silently. Judging by his clothes, Zed confirms he must be a lackey, but since he is bowing to him, it means he must be from the Black Mirror Squad. Zed was kind of hoping his hunch was wrong, but it looks like he was right. It is then that the man of the hour appears. DeVito Smarks questions what brings someone so important to a place like this. He appeared casual as he mentioned how he heard what Zed did to the harbor slave trader yesterday. Zed could tell his family's name had no effect on this guy. DeVito questions if he has got guts or is just a naive fool who knows nothing of the world. Zed continues to put up an act, saying that as of now, Arahans will be cutting all ties with him and he will be taking the slaves with him. DeVito instantly bursts into laughter. This only provides confidence to the two guards who worked earlier, trembling with fear. DeVito agrees to spare his life, but suggests he consider this a life lesson. Zed watches the guards appear before him with weapons, and he realizes he has no choice. Thankfully, there was just one Black Mirror Squad here, and he wonders what circle he is in. If he is from the 5th circle, Zed is confident he can handle him. However, he soon hears a voice from outside ordering to surround the building. It was Torres Bahal, the true man of the hour. He really said, "You're not dying on my watch." Now it is an Arahan versus the slave mafia versus the Bahals all loading at once. Peak cinema. The Bahal Knights storm inside the building storm like this is a clearance sale, and DeVito is the last item on the rack. DeVito was stunned to see the Bahal heir. More so, he was completely surrounded and accused of kidnapping and imprisoning the powerless without cause, dishonoring the Bahal family by spreading filth across southern lands. DeVito couldn't believe that those eyes that were meant to glare at each other were all staring down at him. He asks for mercy, but both DeVito's hands hit the floor before his brain even processes what just happened. DeVito wails with pain right before being officially removed from the chat, permanently. Upon Zed's questioning, Torres reveals that the Emperor has issued a decree ordering them to wipe out all the slave traders. He has sent his knights to the other slave traders and came here himself, since this place is the biggest. He then questions Zed about what he is doing here and whether he planned to handle DeVito all on his own. He affirmed, saying he had something to confirm. Torres cautioned him not to overdo it, as he is still not even at the 1st circle yet. Hearing that the Emperor has issued a decree makes Zed realize he has a convenient excuse to use now, but the Arahan family won't let this slide. His eyes shift to the body of the Black Mirror Squad member nearby. Unlike the others, that guy didn't even fight back. If he chose not to fight back, that is some serious loyalty. The Bahal Knights soon found the slaves in the basement, 600 slaves. Torres orders a blonde girl to be brought, but they couldn't find her. It is disgusting, but the harsh truth is that young girls are expensive and always in demand. Therefore, Zed was certain she may have already been sold. Ryu lost all hope when the slaves were all counted, and yet they couldn't find a blonde girl. The next agenda was to send the rescued slaves to the Imperial Palace. As for the rest of these levers, the crackdown will continue tomorrow. Just then, Torres' horse begins to flinch in surprise as a young girl comes close to it. This grabs Torres' attention, and he notices how the girl has blonde hair. Even Zed was surprised, as he had not noticed the girl's presence earlier. The girl takes note of Ryu and instantly recognizes him. The two siblings tearfully reunite while the others watch. It seems they weren't able to spot her because of that hood. Zed teases Torres for growing sentimental. They later went to a bar. Torres treat. Food. Laughter. No one trying to kill them for once. While everyone seemed to enjoy themselves, Zed was feeling a bit awkward. It is because internally he was 40 years old, hanging around with a 15 and 13-year-old. Ryu happily serves his sister plenty of meat, boasting that he is friends with a Bahal and an Arahan. The siblings' chatter filled the space with warmth. Maybe this would be Zed's first perfect day since arriving in this world. Let's just say he spoke too early. Their cheerful celebration is soon interrupted as Bahal's vice captain Philip appears. He reveals how he came urgently with a message from the Lord. He then swings his sword, pointing it towards Zed. So much for wanting the day to end perfectly. But he guesses that is not going to happen. Just as he had expected, Philip reveals that the Lord wants Torres to bring that man to him immediately. Now the scene shifts to Zed being transported to the Bahal territory. Philip warns him not to make eye contact with the Lord and kneel in his presence. Basically, don't exist incorrectly. But Zed interjects, questioning who he thinks he is to order him around. Philip arrogantly suggests that he showed respect, or they will bring back his head alone. Zed glares at him, saying that he is the one who needs to show some respect, asserting that he is from the Arahan family. Zed does not know what the Lord of the Bahal family, Fernando, is planning. but as a member of the Arahan family, he has to carry himself with dignity. For some reason, it felt like that was the only way he could survive. If he lowers himself, they will see him as an easy target. But if Zed throws his weight around, he will only provoke them, so he has to tread carefully. Hopefully, he is right about this. They soon reach the Bahal estate. It was exactly how he remembers it from the game, the fact that the Bahal leader called him to the reception room instead of the office on the 7th floor. This means that he is treating him like a guest. A booming voice asserts that Zed was the first Arahan to set foot in the Bahal mansion. Zed freezes in his tracks from the shock as he could feel the intense presence right behind him. Just being in the same room as the Lord of Bahal was overwhelming. He couldn't even turn around. The man wasn't using mana, otherwise his trait would have reacted. It was just his overwhelming presence alone. The presence of a knight who has reached swordmaster level, surpassing the 10th circle. The man calmly walks to his seat and settles down. An intense aura continually radiates from him. After observing Zed for a bit, he gives him credit for his boldness, but reminds him that this is the Bahal mansion and he should act with proper respect. Zed knew he must not kneel here, and yielding to the strong is a disgrace. One sign of submission, and he is out of his sight for good. Instead, he settles for a head bow and thanks the man for having him here. He thanks him for bringing him by carriage and welcoming him to the reception room. He says if kneeling and bowing is Bahal's way of hospitality, then he will follow it. Fernando's eyes widen in shock and he bursts into laughter. Congratulations! Zed survived the first dialogue check. They soon settle down. Zed was served minar tea, making him relieved because this truly means they're treating him as a guest, at least for now. The man then reveals that he brought Zed here out of personal curiosity and that he shouldn't worry. He heard that the Arahan sought out the slave-traded DeVito and questioned if it was under the Emperor's command. Zed says he heard about the decree after the matter was resolved. Fernando becomes surprised and questions why he moved even before receiving the decree. Zed is aware there are many answers that would please the Bahal leader, but right now, he will speak only the truth. After all, he cannot lie in front of his swordmaster. He asserts that slavery is against human decency, and he simply followed his conscience. Fernando was a bit taken aback and questioned if he didn't know DeVito was connected to his family. Zed confesses that the moment he met him, he knew the rumor was true. He made a decision based on what is right and wrong, and it had nothing to do with his family, therefore he has no regrets. Fernando was impressed by his answer. He guesses that this kid knows what it means to turn against your family, especially as an Arahan, and because of his curiosity, the kid is now even in greater danger. Looks like Torres was right. He is a mage who understands honor. He offers Zed to stay the night and join him for breakfast tomorrow if he's up for it. Zed further impresses the guy as if he were his father-in-law by doing a knight salute and thanking him for the invitation. Zed sighs deeply in relief when he settles down in the guest room. Fortunately, Fernando acted just like he did in the game. One wrong move and he would have lost his head. Sticking to the truth turned out to be the smartest move. Now that he has made it past this challenge, he is finally feeling hungry. As if his wishes were all coming true, he was soon served a meal. But to his utter shock, he finds a Black Mirror Squad card in his meal. He instantly rushes out to find the man who served him his meal. But now there was no trace left of him. He instantly rushes back to his room and takes a look at the card. Magic card 0. That means return or abort. This time, the head of the Arahan family is calling for Zed. Zed couldn't believe he saw the Black Mirror Squad magic card in the Bahal mansion, and now he was having an existential crisis, wondering if there is anywhere Arahan doesn't reach. At this point, they might as well have Wi-Fi access to his thoughts. He becomes taken aback as there is a certain knock on the door. It was Torres. The guy reveals that he took care of Ryu and Lisa, but he was worried, so he came to check on him. He assures that he is fine, as the lord of the house must have seen something in him and is personally calling off the bounty on him. Zed was genuinely surprised by this action. It would have been perfect if that magic card had not shown up. If he cannot escape the Arahans no matter where he goes, then he guesses there's no choice but to face them head on. After breakfast at the mansion, Torres dragged Zed around, giving him a tour of the family estate. But Zed's mind was too cluttered right now, so he didn't feel much even though he was seeing the Bahal mansion in real life. However, his attention is finally caught by a small place near the stables. Torres reveals that the Bahali's family white horses choose who gets to ride them. In that place, the horses who have not chosen a master yet are kept. Zed notices that there was only one white horse there. He becomes surprised as Torres reaches out for the horse, but it only flinches in return. Torres reveals that normally the white horse chooses their master within 3 months, but this one hasn't let anyone touch it for 2 years now. It is the only one that has ever rejected even the Lord's touch. Turns out white horses do not always choose the strongest. Each has its own criteria. Zed finds the sacred beasts pretty cool. He smiles at the white horse and reaches out for it as if by instinct. However, he gets interrupted as Philip appears with his side effects. Philip has no choice but to show proper respect due to the tourist's presence, but his eyes clearly stated the opposite, and he suggested the two join them for a training session. Torres Torres tries to deny, but Zed eventually agrees to spar. While Zed was calmly warming up, Torres was worried for him because he is not even at first circle yet, though he might have unlocked the lightning aura. The kid should know fully well that he cannot win against a 5th circle knight. Torres clearly hadn't seen him fight Clark. The sparring match soon began. Zed activates his lightning aura. However, Phillips's confidence wasn't wavered in the slightest because the amount of mana had barely reached the 2nd circle. Zed's opponent was surprised by his approach, who wasn't backing away or even chanting a spell. To everyone's shock, he was able to dodge the attack and hit the opponent. He continues to attack the man, not giving him an opening. Eventually, he ends up punching him in the abdomen, causing him to lose hold of his wooden sword. While everyone's mouth gaped open in shock, the white horse calmly watched the scene unfold. The man ended up collapsing, and a healer had to be called. His other 2 colleagues were enraged and challenged the Arahan for a fight. Torres instantly shields him, ordering them to back down, but Philip requests him to step aside as he must fight the mage. Zed was agitated, wondering who they think he is. Some pushover that will fight just because they want him to. After what he has shown, they won't consider Mage's preference for distance anymore and will come at him differently. But that was the advantage he had against Clark. Objectively speaking, a 5th circle knight is far stronger than he is, so there is no way he will entertain them, but it does not look like they are settling down. More knights have shown up as well, so he knows he has no choice. He assured Torres that one fight should be enough, but he sarcastically comments that he thought accepting defeat gracefully was part of their knightly code and honor. Philip and the others were furious to see a mage speak of chivalry. Zed firmly asserts that he sparred with one of them because he was asked to in the very heart of the Bahal estate. He questions if they do not realize what that means. He hopes to see if any of them would have the guts to spar with a mage right in the middle of Arahan territory. Out of the blue, Fernando appears, seemingly impressed by Zed's remarks. Everyone was shocked by his sudden presence. Fernando glares at the knights, ordering them to put away their swords. No wonder this guy was the level of a sword master, as Zed couldn't notice him approaching even though his perception stat is 100. Fernando comments that an Arahan sparring on the Bahal family grounds is an event worth etching into the annals of history. Zed apologizes but says he couldn't refuse the challenge, as Arahans never back down from a fight. Fernando already knew that and understands it. He suggests his knights learn from this match and train harder. Zed could tell that this man's words have a sharp edge and wonders what he is trying to say. Fernando confesses that Zed has given his knights a valuable lesson and that he won't forget what happened today. Zed becomes confused, wondering if it is a warning or a compliment. It feels like he is sitting on needles here. He had no choice but to nod. Just then, they all hear wooden planks being smashed and a horse making its way into the middle ground. It was none other than the white horse. As it continues to spin around, Torres remains stunned, saying that is sort of a ritual. He explains that just as the horse chooses its master, it shows off its skills to be chosen. In other words, its chosen master is among them. Philip's mouth drains of its color as he realizes what this must mean. It was Zed whom the white horse chose as its master. The sword master Fernando remains astounded to his core, knowing this is something that would shock even their ancestors. Even Zed couldn't believe it. It was good that the white horse has finally found its master, but why an Arahan? He couldn't understand if he should honor the horse's decision or uphold their tradition. Maybe the answer is already decided. The sword master asks if he acknowledges the horse Pearl as his companion and vows to stay with her for life. Zed remains taken aback, wondering if this is a wedding. The white horse begins to make some sounds, and Zed could understand that it is asking him to choose her. One more look from the sword master, and Zed has no choice but to agree. Philip tries to argue, saying that throughout their family's history, only members of the Bahal family have ever ridden the white horse. The sword master agrees, but says the horse only chose masters within the family until now because they were never given a choice. Philip was enraged and pointed out how the Arahans slaughtered their white horses like pigs and ate them. The sword master says this is exactly why he made Zed Arahan promise him. However, Philip continues to complain, and so the sword master makes a promise to him that he will personally take Zed's life if he ever treats her white horse as anything less than a comrade. Zed and Torres remain stunned. Philip only shuts up when the sword master tells him to. Zed leaves the mansion before things get any worse, but honestly he finds it fun to ride the white horse. They hurriedly made their way to Frida, reuniting with Ryu and Lisa. Pretty historic to see an Arahan surviving a visit to Bahal territory and even taking one of their white horses. Zed filled Ryu in on everything so far, from the Black Mirror Squad's magic card to the breath of the demon and everything about Lacto Chervil. He then reveals his plans for meeting the Arahan, saying he cannot avoid it any longer. To his surprise, Ryu asserts that he will come with him, mentioning how abandoning a friend is never an option. He decides to go as his butler. Lisa also agrees to go on the pretext of doing chores. Zed is aware that parting ways with Ryo is the right choice for his safety if he thinks about what dangers lie ahead. But seeing their determination, he thanks them and decides to go see the Arahans together. Even though he has decided to go, Zed knows he cannot go without a plan and needs a card up his sleeve. Right now, his potential cards are the last surviving heir of a ruined blacksmith family, untouchable, and the breath of a demon he got from the basilisk. But he will need some holy water to turn it into an elixir. So to get both of these cards in his hand, he will need to head to Myers. The only problem is how long the Lord of Arahan will wait. The next morning, the three of them set out for Myers, because apparently this is a family trip now. To make the elixir, Zed has to pour holy water over a demon's breath, and the success rate depends on how divine the holy water is. In other words, even hundreds of bottles of standard holy water won't make a difference. The average price of holy water is around 10 gold coins each, so that is about 50 bottles, bare minimum. And if none of them work, that gold will be wasted. That is why he is here in Myers. Ryu was shocked to hear that he would require 500 gold coins for this task. In Myers, there is a priest whom Zed can trust. Ryu sadly watches as he takes all of their wealth, only leaving a few silver coins behind. In the meantime, he sends Ryu on a side mission, find untouchable. The instructions are oddly specific: one eye, white hair, and absolutely do not call him Lacto. Zed says the guy is a fugitive and won't show up just for a few coins. Ryu must filter out those who show up and focus only on the ones who have not appeared. Zed had initially planned to spend the money on magic tools, but after hearing about untouchable from Gordon, he changed his plans. He now plans on using the money to make the elixir and get Lacto on his side to make the tools. That would be the best case scenario. If things go as planned, Zed might be able to make up for his low mana. His attention diverts towards a nearby cathedral where a large crowd had gathered. He wonders if the people have already found out about Johan's holy power. It would be weird because it is too early for that in accordance with the game's sequence. After asking around, he learns that the cathedral is selling holy water at half price. For Zed, this is a huge deal. With this, he could turn both breaths of the demon into elixirs. But something seemed pretty fishy. Either it's a miracle or a scam with a really good marketing team. Zed immediately does the math. It takes a full day to produce holy water since it is infused with holy power. If he really is Johan who doesn't care about money, selling holy water at half price would make sense. But there is no way he could have stockpiled this much holy water when each bottle takes a full day to produce. It was finally Zed's turn to enter the cathedral. The problem is he has only seen Johan in the game. He ends up calling him Johann Teresa, and seeing that the man did not care and straight up questioned how many bottles he needs, Zed becomes furious. He asserts that there is only one father Johann in Myers, and that is Johann Chris. He accuses the man of being a fraud and messing with the church. He then threatens to report to the provincial army, but the man clearly does not care and says he will accept the punishment if he is guilty. He then suggests the boy get lost unless he wants to die. Later, Zed pieces it together. If the fake priest isn't afraid of the authorities, then the authorities might be part of the problem. The Imperial Army might be trustworthy, but local forces? Much easier to corrupt. So instead of backing off, Zed decides to test that theory directly. Fortunately, there's a local garrison stationed in Myers. Along with Pearl, he makes his way towards it. The guards instantly recognized the Bahai's white horse and treated Zed with respect. However, they suggest he come back after scheduling an appointment with the general, right? Because crime apparently runs on office hours now. Zed firmly states that reporting a serious case should be their top priority, yet they're telling him to come back after making an appointment. The guard apologizes, saying they're just following orders. Zed knew he couldn't talk sense to the foot soldiers, but he still didn't feel right living like this. However, just then, a man with a bunch of guards appears from behind him, the general. Zed politely reveals that he is here to report a crime. The general begins to ask questions about the horse, and Zed assumes that this guy doesn't seem to care about the report. You wouldn't have even spoken to him if it were not for Pearl. The general says he has never heard of the Pahal family giving away a white horse, especially that to a mage. He accuses Zed of lying. Zed instantly shifts to the main topic, revealing that a fake priest is selling fake holy water at the cathedral. However, just as he started to talk, the general ordered him to be arrested. He was instantly surrounded by the guards and was told to be thrown in jail, and his white horse was confiscated. It is then that Zed realizes they are all in on it. His gut was right again. Surprisingly, Zed calmly lets them take him to jail, but he clearly had a plan in mind. Meanwhile, at the Bahal estate, Fernando reveals to Torres that the emperor has decided to grant them a greater reward. It is because they have repatriated most citizens, rescuing many from the slave traders, leaving Arahan behind. The emperor, who typically promotes harmony and balance between knights and mages and rarely stirs conflict, has now revealed the rankings publicly, which could only mean one thing: that this is something he took a deep interest in. It is meaningful that Bahal made the greatest contribution in a matter that held such significance to the emperor. Fernando suggests Torres start preparing for the long journey because he will need to go receive the reward. However, he instantly halts speaking as he notices something in the letter. Just then, a Bahal knight enters the room, revealing that a boy is waiting outside the estate requesting to speak with him. Apparently, he is a friend of Zed Arahan and Lord Torres, Ryu. Torres becomes worried, wondering what brings him all the way out here. Fernando also agrees, saying that Zed Arahan must have sent him. In truth, the emperor had mentioned in the letter that he commended Zed Arahan, who aided imperial citizens regardless of their class, and that nobles should take the lead and follow this example. Ironic, because right now that same commendable mage is sitting in a jail cell, surrounded by enemies, and probably plotting something. With trembling hands, Ryu hands the Bahal leader a note Zed left him. He was instructed to give it to the Lord of Bahal if he didn't come back by nightfall. Fernando, who was already dealing with the emperor's praise for Zed, now finds himself holding a letter written by the same 15-year-old chaos magnet. His eyes widen in surprise as he reads the note's contents. The insight of the 15-year-old was truly unbelievable. Ryu worries something bad might have happened to Zed, and he apologizes for the sudden visit. But Fernando assures him he did the honorable thing, coming for his friend. While Ryu is treated with the utmost hospitality in the Bahal estate, Zed, on the other hand, has been working out for more than 2 hours in prison. At this point, the guards are less worried about him escaping and more worried that he's going to start a fitness program in prison and recruit them. The general soon comes to visit and is also surprised to hear that he has been doing this for hours straight. Zed is soon brought before him. The general advises that what he says next decides whether he walks out or suffers more. He says the white horse wouldn't obey him, and whether Zed put a spell on it. Zed curses him, saying the horse obeys only the master it chooses. Clearly, the general did not believe him, to which Zed says he will see soon. The general becomes furious and decides to deal with him personally. He retorts that no one has ever lasted more than 30 minutes with his methods. His fury intensifies as he sees Zed smiling. He begins to tap Zed's knee with a dagger, suggesting he say something now, but Zed only curses him. Just as things are about to get very stabby, a letter arrives. And this letter? Absolute plot twist. The letter was from Fernando and read that the man they have captured is the White Horse's master, a friend of the Bahals, and also a member of the Arahan family. And since the general is suspected of involvement in Myers Cathedral corruption, he is to wait for investigation by the Central Army. If he disobeys, he will be judged by the House of Bahal. The general, instead of backing down like a sane person, doubles down. He says he doesn't care even if he got a letter from the Lord of Bahal, and not even he has the authority to push him around. It is then that Zed activates his lightning aura, shocking everyone. However, before he could do something, he watched the general being tied in chains. Turns out there is a Black Mirror squad member among the low-ranking soldiers. They really said we're everywhere and meant it, making Zed wonder just how powerful the group is. He watches as the man chants some spells to trap the general and the others. Soon, the other members of the Black Mirror squad appeared before him, revealing that the Lord had ordered his immediate return and that they would be escorting him. But Zed still had some plans he hadn't finished. He still needs the elixir and hasn't found Lacto yet. He asks them to give him a few days, and he will return on his own. However, they refuse to do that, saying they follow only the Lord's orders. Zed reminds them that if he returns like this, he will be dead for sure. He tells them to report to the Lord what he said, and ask him to give him some time to prepare so he can survive once he returns. If he still wishes for him to return after hearing that, he will follow them without a word. The group agreed and suggested he wait here till then. Zed knew that the Lord should have seen everything he had done through the Black Mirror squad. The only issues might be killing that slaver DeVito and visiting the Bahal family. He will probably question those, and Zed has to be ready for that time. The Black Mirror squad seemed to be quick in their service as they immediately returned and revealed that the Lord had agreed to give Zed some time. He must return to the family within 14 days, and there won't be extensions. And so the countdown has begun. Honestly, Zed is just glad he has got a grace period to work with. All he has to do now is move fast. The Black Mirror squad member reveals that the Lord of the House has entrusted the matter regarding Pullman and Myers Cathedral to him. An investigator will arrive soon, and he is advised to handle it wisely. The more Zed learns about the group's inner workings, the more impressive they are. But there was more to the story. The member reveals that the Lord doesn't want Zed to hide the fact that he is from the Arahan family. It means that Zed should stop wearing the blue lenses. It was pretty infuriating to hear, considering they dumped him in prison, and now they want him to show off his bloodline. When he asks the squad the reason for it, they do not answer and immediately take their leave. 2 hours pass by. Zed meets with the Imperial investigator Cox. Cox praises him for bringing light to corruption in the Imperial Army and questions his noble house. Zed is reminded of how he was told not to hide his identity, and so he quickly takes off his lenses, shocking Cox. He introduces himself as the seventh son of the Arahan family. Cox laughs, realizing that he is the Arahan mentioned in the dispatch. Seeing Zed's confused expression, he shows him the dispatch penned by His Majesty himself and how his name comes up at the very end. Zed was surprised that the Emperor even knew about him. Cox reveals that His Majesty enjoys speaking with people of all ranks, and apparently people from the repatriated group mentioned him. Zed guesses it might be Gordon. Gordon did say he would repay him, but he didn't think it would come full circle this quickly. Zed requests Cox that he would like to see this matter with the cathedral through to the end on his own. Cox agrees, saying he should finish what he started then. Zed applauds his Imperial investigator status, giving up the credit without hesitation. Cox gives him Imperial troops that came with him, saying that the enemies have broken Imperial law and that he is authorized to deal with them on the spot. He then comments on how the kid is unusually polite for someone from the Arahan family, which is quite refreshing. Instead of feeling complimented, Zed feels annoyed. It is because this means his whole family is just a bunch of rude people. All the folks gathered as they watched the Imperial army make its way into Myers. They have heard about how the general got arrested due to some shady deal with the cathedral and how even the priest was a fake. Zed addresses the cathedral, asserting that swindlers who deceived Imperial citizens for profit should come forward or face death. However, no one comes out. Though the Imperial Knights offer to drag them out by force, Zed reminds them that weapon and mana use aren't allowed inside the cathedral. It would be too dangerous. Zed decides to take the matter into his own hands and approaches the cathedral while the worried knights try to stop him. They soon watch Cox arrive with the permit and realize they don't have to hold back anymore and should storm inside to arrest the criminals. However, Cox stops them, revealing that he gave the kid the Imperial command badge to finish the case himself, and that is what he wanted as well. While the knights began to protest how he is alone and there is an armed group inside, Cox says they clearly do not know about the Arahan family. After all, there is a reason why they are the #1 family whom everyone fears. It isn't just because of their strength, it is because they never go back on their word, no matter what it takes. Zed's demeanor darkens as he opens the cathedral's gate and sees that the swindlers are already armed and ready to attack. He smirks, saying this wouldn't end well for them. He calmly enters the cathedral, and for the next few minutes, all that everyone from outside could hear were the screams of the frauds. It was soon quiet. The knights worried about Zed, but seeing him casually walk out with all the criminals tied up like he had just finished grocery shopping, they instantly erupted in cheers, taking an armed group down without using any mana. It was truly a tremendous feat. Cox only loves saying that it is the Arahan bloodline. Zed requests that Cox make sure the scammed people get help. Soon Father Johann exits the cathedral and everyone begins to praise him. Father Johann calmly approaches the culprits and uses his divine power on them, praying that they repent and live according to the Lord's will. The culprits instantly began to apologize and thank him, swearing to never go against God again. Zed watches this scene, and just the sight of it feels warm and comforting to him, and so everyone cheered with Father Johann's return. Father Johann expresses his gratitude to Zed, even offering him some tea. Before Zed could follow him, Cox stops him and gives him an Imperial Investigator's badge that grants command over Imperial troops. If he shows this anywhere in the Empire, people will come to his aid. He tells Zed that he trusts he won't tarnish his name and will only use it for the Empire. Zed becomes determined and promises never to misuse it. It seems Cox is pretty old now that he has seen politeness around him. With that, he leaves. Returning to Zed and Father Johann's storyline, they settle down in the cathedral to talk. The man was pretty wise in perspective, as he immediately gets to the point, asking Zed if there is something he wants from him. Zed honestly confesses that he needs his holy water. Father Johann mentions that holy water is meant to heal and fight evil. Zed reveals he needs to craft some magic tools. He is not sure if it counts as fighting evil, but it is something that could save his life. Although he belongs to the House of Arahan, he was cast out for not being able to wield mana, but recently, he received an order to return to the family. Father Johann nodded knowingly. Apparently, toxic family environment was a universal language. Although it isn't certain that magic tools can save his life, he must prepare everything he can. Zed had done the math, the risks, and probably a few mental funeral speeches just in case. Father Johann reveals that he has heard a rumor about how Zed took down a notorious slave trader once managed by the Arahans. He instantly stood up, saying it must be by divine will, then for that rumored Arahan to come to Myers to protect the house of God, and his assistance is preordained as well. He takes out a box, revealing he has been saving this for someone truly in need. The holy water's effect varies depending on how much divine power it contains, and so he poured all the strength he could over a long period into 3 bottles. Zed was truly amazed that this man was giving him all this precious holy water. This was the premium limited edition. God personally double-checked this batch kind. Father Johann reveals he has a personal gift to give him as well. The item Zed has always wanted while playing the game. A priest's mark is essentially a priest's endorsement. It might not sound important, but in the world of the last saber, it is incredibly powerful. The church gained its current authority because the emperor devoted himself to creating an empire guided by morality and conscience. In other words, a priest's endorsement is essentially the same as the emperor's. With this, Zed is off the wanted list and cannot be arrested on the spot. More importantly, no one can just kill him easily. The mark greatly increases his chances of surviving. Johann must have known that when he gave it to him. Zed stares at the investigator's badge and the priest's mark in his hands, probably the best he could hope for before returning to the family. Anyone who wants him dead will have to take a serious risk now, and wherever he goes, Zed will be under the Empire's protection. Simply having these was enough to make him feel secure and prepared to face the Arahans. In the game, the holy water Johann made had a 20% success rate, but the ones he gave Zed were apparently made with utmost care. 3 bottles of holy water and 2 demon's breath. He decides to give them a shot before the universe could change its mind. He pours one of the bottles onto the demon's breath and observes. To his shock, it instantly turns into an elixir. Without hesitating, he quickly drinks it, and his mana stat increases to 4. He cheers, knowing that if the next one works, he will reach 5. The second bottle also works, which means it now has more than an 80% success rate. This much divine power is almost like having an extra life, and he decides to savor it. With his mana stat reaching 5, he unlocks a new skill. He was so happy that he jumped back on his bed. He feels relieved that Transcendence had required 5 mana rather than 10, otherwise it would have been rough for him. It seemed this was much more fun than when he was playing the game. On the other hand, Ryu had looked into white-haired people with one eye, as Zed had asked. Turns out there were about 40. He offered money to gather them, and 34 people came, so the person he is looking for is one of the 6 who did not show. He wrote down their exact locations just in case. Zed thanks him and assures him that he does not have to try so hard because he already knows how smart he is. He promises to protect him and his sister no matter what, saying he is the first comrade he has ever met after all. Just then, a woman approaches. She was probably a fangirl by the way she was talking about her. Zed now realizes why everyone was staring at him. Everyone knew about his identity after the cathedral situation. They all gathered around the tree, thanking Zed for protecting their church. Despite being used to stuff like this in the previous world, Zed found this situation pretty embarrassing and decided to get out of here. But he instantly freezes in his tracks and becomes alert as he spots a face, white hair and one eye, untouchable. He tries his best to make his way past the crowd and rushes in the man's direction. However, he was unable to track him down. Zed asked Ryu, tell him the closest of those 6 locations he mentioned. Zed is aware that man is probably planning to run for good, and if he really starts hiding from them, they will never find him. They rush towards the closest location. However, it wasn't that man. They continue going from location to location, but to no avail. They finally reach the next location, which was on the basement level. However, Zed soon feels something is off and urges Ryu to stay upstairs. He knows Lacto is the greatest blacksmith alive and is on the run. If this is really where he has been hiding, then there should be traps. He instantly activates his Transcendence magic and makes his way onto the road. However, as soon as he opens the door, an explosion occurs, activating Zed's immortal gambler trait. He was instantly surrounded by azure flame, shocking him. It is a higher tier fire attribute, and even regular flames wouldn't reach this level of power with just magic tools. It seems Lacto managed to trigger azure flame with just a rigged trap. Amazing. And now everything was blown to hell. If not for Immortal Gambler, Zed would be dead right now. It is a trait that ignores instant death damage, and he has used it a lot in the game, so he knows how it works. Put simply, this trait keeps him from getting one-shotted. He thought it would be a 4th or 5th circle blast. At best, it activated his trait. He survived it, but knowing he technically died once still bothers him. And now he was more than ever determined to find Lacto and bring him to his side. Because obviously, the man who just almost killed him was exactly the kind of employee he needed. Zed, Ryu, and Lisa soon returned to their dwelling. They tried to find traces of evidence left by the explosion, but everything had burned away. Ryu finds it unfair that there would be suspects in this situation, but it is true that they will pin it on them if they cannot prove it was a trap. Plus, the Arahan family deals with fire. When Ryu mentions involving the Bahal family's head, Zed suggests it is better if they keep their distance. That is because of the Black Mirror Squad. Let's just say the family reunion would come early. Just then, they hear footsteps approaching, and soon a voice reveals that the Myers Regional Army army has come for Zed. Zed assures them that they should stay here while he goes alone. The general of the regional army orders him to be grabbed. However, as they see the priest's mark on his chest, they stop. Zed reveals how Father Johann gave it to him. The general instantly apologizes. He reveals how he has recently taken command of Myers from the previous general. There was a big explosion earlier in town, and witnesses mentioned his name. Zed reveals he was caught in the explosion himself and is a victim rather than a suspect. All technically true, just missing the part where he walked straight into death like it was a hobby. Upon questioning, he reveals how he happened to enter while searching for someone, and there was a trap inside. He knows that with the priest's mark, even if they suspect him, they cannot treat him like a criminal. Plus, if he gets the regional army to help, finding Lacto will be much easier. However, the general reveals they cannot abuse state authority without proper justification or move on to private matters. But Zed instantly plays Uno reverse, showing them the Imperial Investigator's badge. And so the general agrees to provide full assistance. Seeing their demeanor instantly shift, Zed realizes the Imperial Investigator's badge has more pull. It makes sense considering that while the priest's smirk offers immunity, the Imperial Investigator's badge offers authority. He asks the general to find him someone who can draw so they can sketch the suspect. A poster was soon set up, which caught everyone's eye. Meanwhile, the man in question wonders if Zed had mistaken him for someone else. But that can't be true, and he realizes that the kid drew it wrong on purpose. It seems Zed wants to meet him. Whatever game he is playing, he will know when they meet. He has lost track of how many cities he has been through and is tired of running. Maybe it is finally time to end this, as he has lived long enough. He has got nothing left to hold on to. He watches a lot of people around and decides to slip between the crowd and observe. However, a voice approaches him from behind, praising his disguise. Turns out it was Zed. Zed suggests they move somewhere else first before talking. Zed introduces himself and says he already knows the man's identity. Upon questioning, Zed says he wants to hire him, the legendary blacksmith, as the personal blacksmith of House Arahan. There is a clear line between game and reality, like equipping items, for example. In Last Saber, you just double-click to equip something. But in reality, you have to actually put it on. So Zed not only needs to compare equipment stats, but also consider how it feels to wear and how heavy it is. Magic tools sold on the market are designed for adults. Stats don't matter if you physically cannot move your arms. Zed putting that on would look like a kid wearing his dad's wedding suit. That is exactly why Zed needs Lacto on his side. It is because Lacto can craft magic gear tailored to Zed's body. Zed can also get additional gear to match his stats as they grow or to handle certain tricky situations. And so now, Zed reminds Lacto of the purpose Lacto was born to serve as the last of the Sherville bloodline. The greatest craftsman crafting for the greatest house. That is Lacto's duty. It seems Lacto takes the emotional bait and thinks about handing it down to the next generation and keeping his family's name alive. He becomes even more shocked as the kid believes that his family did not do what they were accused of. Zed promises that he and his family will restore Sherville's name and honor. Lacto scoffs as Zed says he does not know in detail what happened in the Sherville massacre. The event took place before the game's main story, so you only catch hints of it through NPC dialogue. Even the official record simply states that the family staged a rebellion and was wiped out by Imperial forces. Zed affirms that he does know what kind of family House Sherville was, even if he does not know the full story. They were solely focused on making better magic tools and had no reason to start the rebellion. Another thing to consider is that the Emperor is both a sword master and an archmage, literally the pinnacle of power. On top of that, he has knights and mages serving under him as part of the central army. As it stands, not even the Arahans and Bahals could defeat him even if they joined forces. The Emperor is also an immortal being, the eternal and absolute ruler of this world. So what would be the point of Sherville's family rising up against the Emperor? That is what Zed thought. And so he asks the old man to tell him the truth about what really happened. Lacto sighs deeply and questions if the kid knows about the Martin family. Zed affirms, as they are second only to his own house when it comes to mage families. Lacto adds that they were one of their main clients and always wanted to surpass the Arahan family. A delusional dream, obviously. The real trouble started when the Billy family got involved. Zed is aware that the Billy family is nobodies, yet somehow they rise through the ranks and end up rivaling the House of Martin by the late game. Lacto reveals that one day someone from the Billy family came to them. They wanted them to cut ties with Martin's family and deal exclusively with them. Of course, the Cherville family turned them down. And so to hurt them, the Billy family fed false information to the Martins and drove a wedge between them. Lacto doesn't know much. But what he does know is that the Imperial army suddenly stormed in one day and slaughtered everyone on the site. They never had the time or the chance to explain. Zed listens to his story in shock, giving him a pretty good picture of what happened. Now here's where it gets spicy. Are the Arahans really uninvolved in all of this? If they played a part, bringing Lacto along could be the worst thing Zed could do to him. Since the Arahan family never did business with the Sherville family, they might have viewed them as a thorn in their side for providing top-tier gear to their rivals. And if the Black Mirror Squad was involved, there wouldn't be a single shred of evidence left. Knowing what they're capable of, the more Zed thinks about it, the more it seems like they did have something to do with this. But he decides not to assume anything too soon. He mumbles that if mages were involved, the Arahan family could easily solve this problem, and so he gives Lacto his word, requesting him to come with him. Lacto stares at the determined kid and reaches out his hand as well. He has already come to terms with dying in this place, but maybe it is not so bad to hope, just one last time. It is because if there is still a chance for his family's techniques and history to be passed down, he is willing to take it. Before we move on to this story, let's count down the things Zed has gained in the south. His very first companions, the white horse of the Bahal family, the investigator's badge and the priest's mark, and the last living heir of the Cherville family. Let's see how much they are worth once Zed reaches the house of Arahan. The scene shifts to the western region's golden city of Nekka. The place was magnificent. Ryu and Lisa watch the place in surprise, seeing an entire building made out of gold. Unlike them, Lacto has been here before as a tourist in his later years, but the place has completely grown. Zed observes how relaxed and lively the city seems, giving off Gangnam vibes but in a fantasy setting. Seeing so many people's eyes making their way towards them, Zed realizes that riding this horse through the middle of the Arahan family's territory might have been a mistake. They decide to find a place to stay somewhere first. He has the other three stay put while he goes out somewhere on his own for some work. Zed carefully watches the golden city, but he knows that no matter how bright a city is, it always has its shadows. Some people arrive chasing dreams of gold, only to find despair. He bet they gather in places like shady alleyways. He makes his way into a shop and buys black lenses. The shopkeeper recognizes him as an Arahan and suggests he not buy them as they're quite ordinary and inexpensive. But one look at Zed's expression, and he hurriedly brings them right away. Zed makes his way to the next shop to buy clothes. When he went to buy shoes, he was chased out. Now he was fully serving a beggar-fit check. Now he was prepared to pay a visit to the king of the backstreets. He quietly sits in one of the dirty and shady alleyways. However, he is soon approached by 7 backstreet gangsters. Zed had already noticed their presence and knew they should be making their move any moment now. But the real problem was how hungry he felt. Finally, the moment comes, and he gets surrounded by the gangsters. He asks them for something to eat, which only infuriates them more. They all charged at him together. You might already know what happens next. 7 big men on one side, Zed on the other. The win goes to Zed. The alleyway was soon filled with sounds of anguish and pain as Zed beat them. But now he was even hungrier thanks to them. They try to come at him again as he provokes them to take over their crew. The vice captain soon makes his way to the front with his dagger. As for Zed, he was just glad to hook a big one on his first step. It looks like he might get things done quicker than expected. One of these sidekicks proudly speaks up about the vice captain, pointing out how he is Kinjera, the legendary assassin who turned all of Nekka upside down. But Zed only scoffs, wondering what a legendary assassin is doing with some beggars. The vice captain instantly lunges towards the kid with his dagger. He got impressed as Zed dodged it, saying he is young but has potential. Zed could only internally laugh at this comment, calling potential on a world champ cute. He watches as the vice captain soon activates mana, making Zed realize he is at least 4th circle. He had thought that legendary assassin thing was just a joke, but it seems it is not entirely made up. Assassins operate outside the mainstream factions, so their growth is limited, and they don't have bloodlines to inherit either. So if this guy has reached the 4th circle, it would certainly earn him the title of a legend. The vice captain continues to hover around Zed, provoking him for standing in fear. Zed tries to make sense of where he really is and realizes that he is coming from 3 directions all at once. Fortunately, he manages to escape and dodge their combination attack. Turns out there were 3 brothers, the assassin triplets. Now that Zed looks carefully, he notices how the 3 brothers have similar yet distinct mana signatures. They have been clocking themselves with mana, so he didn't catch them right away. Zed knew it was time to get locked in. He instantly casts his Transcendence Lightning Magic Show. Add his red Rohan eyes on top, and the whole gangster crowd was shocked to their core. They realize it is a trap and begin to flee, but Zed wouldn't allow them to, of course. Then new spells begin to unlock, and he was now not going to leave them at peace. His lightning aura was strengthened, and he tested it out on the vice captain. He had just copied the endgame motion and activated the spell, not even needing a chant. However, Zed soon hears the city guards approaching, and he realizes he must flee instantly. He takes the unconscious vice captain with him and hides. However, the city guards soon noticed blood, shocking Zed. He takes note of how it was the vice captain who left a trail of blood. He was truly screwed. All he wanted was to handle this quietly, but this is far from it. And so he comes out of his hiding place, facing the guards. They instantly recognized him as an Arahan and apologized for not realizing he was here. They politely questioned his identity, saying he doesn't appear to be young Master Tunda. Zed remembers Tunda is the 6th son of House Arahan. He introduces himself as the 7th son, Zed Arahan, and questions if they don't know who he is. He wasn't surprised at all, though, because he had been locked up in prison all this time. They instantly began to apologize, saying they didn't mean to be disrespectful. Zed reveals that the culprit behind the explosion was escaping, and he orders them to go after them. As he sees them running away, he realizes he only needed a few words to handle this. It looks like he's almost untouchable in his family's territory. Now returning to the real problem. Fortunately, the vice captain was still breathing. It seems the lightning strike was way stronger than Zed had expected. Zed balances the unconscious man on his shoulder and begins to walk away. He soon hears a voice calling out to him. He suggests they show themselves. Out comes of the two men, brothers of the vice captain. Their demeanor had shifted, and they apologized for being rude and showing hostility towards a member of House Arahan. They even dropped their weapons in obedience, begging for mercy. Zed remains stunned, unable to believe that these assassins were crying. They assured him that they have only ever killed scum who abuse and torment no one like them and have never harmed innocent people. Zed reminds them that they tried to kill him earlier. The men revealed that it happened because it is their home. From time to time, people tried to take over the alley, and they have lost many comrades as a result. That is why they are on a high alert and truly meant no offense. This makes Zed realize he is not the only one eyeing the underworld. And so after having them swear that they have never harmed innocent people, he agrees to let them go. Sentimental, the brothers reveal that what they truly want is for their family and brothers to live in peace. There must be pride in that above all else as well. Zeno's murder is evil, no doubt about that. But to peasants trampled by nobles, these brothers must have been their only hope. He lets them go on one condition, that they take him as their leader. If they do so, he will help their brother recover. The brothers were shocked to hear this, and after some time they apologized politely, saying they could not do it. They can never choose their own lives over their leaders. Zed tries to reason with them that he just wants to buy information from the leader and has no intention of harming him. But the brothers say that is what everyone says when they approach their leader, who has never once sold information. Zed reveals that he's already aware and swears no harm will come to his comrades, even if they do not make a deal. Zed could understand their current predicament, and he would have questioned this sincerity anyway if they had said yes right away. Left with no other choice, he asks them to tie him up or even feel free to hold a blade to his neck if this is the only way to earn their trust. If they still don't trust him, then he won't be handing their brother back, and so the two brothers have no choice but to take Zed to their leader by blindfolding him. And now Zed was ready to meet the king of the backstreets. 2 hours passed by, and Zed couldn't help but think they were walking in circles. He suddenly realizes something and questions the two brothers if they're trying to find the Black Mirror Squad. He suggested stopping stalling and taking him there directly. It isn't like the Black Mirror Squad doesn't know where their boss is. But the brothers confidently state that even the Black Mirror Squad would not know where the leader is. Zed says that the two don't know the Arahan family. He confidently states that the Black Mirror Squad he knows wouldn't just know where their boss is, but would know exactly how far his influence spreads. The brothers question if he is saying the Black Mirror Squad is nearby, but Zed says he does not know, but it is true they are on a completely different level. Zed soon gets to meet the king of backstreets, Eddie. However, the man did not seem to be interested in visitors and suggested the brothers get him out of here. However, Zed offers holy water, suggesting that they give it to his brother, as he will recover quickly once he drinks it. Zed now directly approaches Eddie. He snatches his book away, infuriating him. However, Eddie was taken aback to see that the man was none other than an Arahan, but he quickly grows angry and begins to lash out at the brothers. The brothers tried to assure their boss that Zed promised no harm, but Eddie says this isn't the first time they have heard something like that, and all nobles are scumbags. Zed knew Eddie to be a genius with perfect memory who never forgets a single thing he sees. Eddie scans from head to toe, pointing out how he is not Tunda Arahan and that he has never seen him before. He questions whether he is the youngest, the one who was abandoned in prison. He smirks, questioning if Zed wants to make a deal. Eddie laughs, stating that nobles are so predictable. It is always bags of gold or helping with clearing their pleasant background. Zed remains silent, making Eddie even more sure about his assumptions. However, Zed is aware that despite this guy's brilliance, he failed every time he tried to attain office because of his low birth. This led Eddie to despise nobles and believe that the world was filled with fools beneath his stature, just like in the game. Zed assures the man that he is not promising gold or any change change in his status. What he is offering is a trade of information. Eddie was finally interested in him, but he doubts that Zed knows that information is the only thing he is after. Little does he know that Zed was a game player, always thinking a step ahead. For Zed, reaching Eddie halfway through the game is crucial, almost like discovering a missing puzzle piece, as he believes Eddie holds information he desperately needs to achieve his goals. He points out how Eddie can remember everything he reads. However, he has limited books that end up in the trash once he is through. He didn't smile, saying that Eddie seems to be ready to negotiate with him, as his body language says it all. Eddie realizes he has turned his body towards the kid, which gives him away. Now that he has got his attention, Zed confesses he wants everything there is to know about the Arahan family, more specifically information on his brothers. Eddie knows information can be money, a weapon, or even a shield, but he says Zed left out the most important part. That is the kind of information he is offering. Zed says it is something Eddie is not aware of, but first he must tell him information about his brothers. Eddie was growing agitated, but he finally gave in because he recognized that Zed understood how negotiation works, knowing what the other person desired. Zed realizes that Eddie's obsession with information makes him vulnerable to manipulation, giving Zed room to push further toward his goal. And so he begins to get up, playing the usual stubborn customer, saying he will be going now. Zed is just glad he met Eddie and bought himself some time. Suddenly, he is approached by the three Kinjera brothers, who thank him for giving them the holy water to help their brother recover. They confess how they have never met a noble like him and swear to remember his name for the rest of their lives. Zed realizes he had his own prejudices about assassins. These guys have a strong bond and do not betray their own. Maybe they really are better people than he thought. He looks back once again and sees that they are still bowing. He remembers how they are on the 4th level, which is a pretty high level for assassins, and there are 3 of them. If he can bring them to his side, there will be a major advantage in the power struggle, and so he asks them to come with him. The scene shifts to Zed coming back to meet Eddie. Eddie remains arrogant, thinking Zed is desperate for information on his brothers because that is probably his only lifeline. However, he remains shocked as Zed reveals how he wants to buy the triplets in exchange for information. Zed says he does not want to negotiate the earlier deal because he knows he would be the one getting the short end. Eddie becomes furious, but he remains calm and says that he cannot buy the triplets because they are their vice captains and he is the boss. As for their price, it is going to cost a lot. Upon questioning Eddie, Says must tell him everything that happened since he left the prison, how he got out, and what he did afterward. That is the bare minimum. In truth, Eddie does not care about money, and curiosity is more than enough of a payoff to him. The return of an abandoned Arahan heir is more than enough to spark his curiosity. But it would come at the cost of exposing himself, and he doubts Zed is ready for that. Zed sighs in disappointment, saying that Eddie is not as bold as he gave him credit for. He had thought the guy would aim higher. Eddie was furious, and he instantly grabbed the guy by his collar, calling him an arrogant brat. However, he instantly backed down after he got an intense look from Zed. His vice captains remind him that he is a member of the Arahan family and that he should stop. Eddie instantly retracts and apologizes for blowing up like that. Zed asserts that he is from the Arahan family, and if he were in Eddie's shoes, he would think about how to use the nobles before hating them. And now is the perfect time. He explains how he knows about Eddie's obsession with information, but there is only so much you can gather in the shadows. He suggests Eddie come out of the shadows and step into the light, where he will help him. Eddie remains stunned by that suggestion. Zed promises to provide him with a building and a prime spot where he can run his agency. He can get more information by dealing with the nobles who run the world. Eddie clarifies that he did not stay in the shadows because he is poor. It is because he is a commoner and not allowed to own a building. Zed clarifies that he will own it, and he will assign magic knights from his family as Eddie's guards. He rises from his seat, revealing how he is offering a partnership and will support Eddie in doing what he wants out in the open. In return, Eddie will give him information, a mutual benefit. Eddie was starstruck, to say the least. He had the opportunity to gain both the information and the Arahan magic knights. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. All the major moves happen within the noble families, while what Eddie hears is from the street rats. If he could also have guards from the Arahan family, he would have his business in a fort reinforced with diamonds, and so he must not let this chance slip away. Eddie instantly accepts the offer, but in return, he must provide Zed with information on his brothers and let go of the triplets. Mind you, that is just the deposit fee. Finally, after so much mystery, Zed reaches the Arahan family's grand estate. Ryu and Zed stayed up all night memorizing the intel Eddie gave them. Everything Something written down was enough to make Zed gasp. There was information about his brother's allies inside the city, spending records, and even the servants' personal information. He was truly impressed by Zed's networking. All he needs is a little push from Zed and he will soar. Exactly the kind of ally Zed needs. What Zed needs now is time to grow stronger in the Arahan family's territory and survive the war between brothers. To do that, today is a very important day. It is because how Zed plays today determines where he stands tomorrow. And so, with him mounted on his Bahal white horse, he makes his way towards the front gates. He is instantly ordered by the guards to dismount and state his identity. However, they calm down as they realize it is just young Master Zed. But they state that his allies cannot enter without the Lord's permission. Things were already going wrong from the very first step. Zed is somewhere he could force his way in, but breaking the rules inside the family's territory doesn't seem like a good idea. He assures Lacto he will be right back, and they should wait here, but Lacto suggests that he doesn't worry about them and takes care of himself. He says an old man's hunch might not mean much, but he has got a bad feeling about this. Zed makes his way inside the territory, knowing he has to stay focused because he is responsible for his companions' lives. He has done all he can to prepare, but he couldn't help but be anxious for what lies ahead. He has ended up in the body of an Arahan by chance, but from this point on, he needs to act as if he belongs here to survive. Practicality is what drives a mage after all. He has to be the seventh and youngest child of the Arahan family, and he has to act like that to win the Lord's favor. Cut to the cue where Zed makes his way to the main room, where his father sits in his chair. Zed couldn't help but tremble under his gaze. The Arahan Lord questions how he feels about returning to the family after such a long time. Zed answers that it is the same as before. He says the Lord's aura is just as powerful as before, and the biting cold is the same. The Arahan leader instantly bursts into laughter which echoes through the room, causing the whole room to shake. Zed's ears were ringing, and his vision started to blur in the process. The man's gaze narrows as he comments on how that sounds like he is saying he can feel his father's aura. Zed grits his teeth anxiously, saying how could he possibly gauge the power of an archmage? It is true his father was one of the Empire's only two archmages, the one who killed all his brothers and seized the family throne, Zenedin Arahan, Zenedin Kament's house. Zed has changed a lot since the last time he saw him. In his memory, he was just a frail child. He begins to laugh out loud once again as Zed says the word frail does not suit their family. He also points out how he heard Zed awaken the lightning aura. Upon questioning, Zed says he is aware that the lightning aura stands above the four core elements. The Arahan leader asserts that throughout their family's history, no one has ever awakened an aura other than fire. Zed could tell the man was showing interest in the lightning aura. He clearly did not see this coming. His father was shocked to hear that he wasn't surprised to attain the lightning aura. Zed boldly says that it is an aura that appears only once in 100 years, and such a blessed aura should of course belong to their family. Zenedin begins to laugh once again maniacally. Every time he laughs, Z feels like his insides are twisting. Zenedin confesses that he called him here because of the lightning aura and expects him to research it thoroughly and bring out its full potential. Wow, it seems he is just trying to use his youngest child, the one who barely survived. But in some ways this works in Zed's favor. Since there is something his father wants, he won't kill him immediately. However, Zenedin would obviously not leave him alone like this. He points out how he must speak to Zed regarding his misconduct. He questions Zed if he did not know a slave trader named DeVito had ties to their house. He becomes furious when Zed affirms it. He calls him out for eliminating the slave trader, and that too by using scum like the House of Bahal. Zed knows the real game has started now. The Arahan leader is finally showing his true colors. Zed sincerely confesses that he did nothing that harmed their family. Slave traders were people they needed to cut off sooner or later. They also stood in opposition to the Emperor's aims, and he believed they would ultimately bring harm to their family. But Zenedin asserts that slave traders brought great gains in the long run because they would have wiped out the entire southern region. Zed had already seen this one coming. Now he has to speak in a way that will earn the Lord's favor. He says that they are both illegitimate and legitimate forms of profit, but to the Arahan leader, profit is just profit. Zed has planned to act like a stubborn 15-year-old so that his father sees this as a mistake a young child might make. With determination in his gaze, he questions, why should the Empire's top family accept dirty money? In the hands of the Arahan family, even the same gold coins ought to shine brighter. Zenedin discards it as nonsense. He then questions why Zed accepted help from the House of Bahal. Regardless of his youth and inexperience, he should know who their enemy is. Zed quickly answers that the Bahal family was acting under an imperial order. It was a mere coincidence that their path crossed. He never sought nor accepted their help. Zenedin was infuriated and accused him of trying to deceive him. He points out how Zed received an invitation from the Ball family and even a white horse as a gift, yet he still claims he didn't accept their help. Zed points out how he was kidnapped. Rather than being invited, he just upheld their family's pride in front of the Lord of Bahal and took a prize from the enemy's stronghold, not a gift. This should be a reason for praise, not to reprimand. He points out that he took the white horse Bahal family believed was their exclusive property. Plus, simply riding the Bahal family's white horse as a member of the Arahan family enhanced their family's renown. He tries to continue playing the role of the stubborn 15-year-old Zed, who truly thinks this deserves praise. After a few seconds, the Arahan leader finally speeds up. His demeanor had darkened, and he coldly warns Zed not to try to fool him with his slick tongue. That is when you know that dear Rahul, the leader, has not taken his stupid bait. Zinedine threatens to punish Zed if he lies once more. Zed agrees that Zinedine has a point, arguing that he should be praised rather than scolded. Zed becomes increasingly confused as he wonders what just happened. Zinedine knows he's lying, yet he's still letting it slide. Zinedine then asks Zed directly what it is he wants. Though Zed is confused right now, he knows he needs to focus on what he needs to get from here. He reveals his wish to claim all the operating funds that should have been allocated to his manor until now. He would also like to request permission for those he brought with him to enter the manor, and please grant him the magic knights, as Zenedine has for his other siblings. Zenedine agrees to assign the knights but says their management will be solely Zed's responsibility. Zed is aware that the magic knights will be neutral at first, but the moment they're stationed in his manor, his siblings will start to approach them, and he's certain some will betray him. That is what his father means when he says it is up to him to manage them, keeping and protecting his people. Zenedine then questions if, by the people he brought, he means the old man, the 3 filthy assassins, and the siblings from the streets. Zed replies affirmatively, saying that Zenedine probably knows the old man is lacto-chervil. The siblings would work as attendants, while the assassins would handle errands, which honestly sounded less like building a noble household and more like accidentally assembling the weirdest found family group chat imaginable. 1 old fugitive craftsman, 3 murder gremlins, 2 street kids, and 1 exhausted teenage noble trying to hold it together. Marvel wishes they had this lineup. Unfortunately, Zenedine immediately refuses to allow Lacto entry, declaring him a traitor who should be arrested and sent straight to the Imperial Palace. You might think that Zed would have panicked to hear this. However, he knew that his father did not actually mean it. If he truly intended to do so, the squad would have already been on the move. Instead, he's just testing how much Zed knows. He then asks the Lord if the Arahan family was involved in the Chervil family's rebellion. He says that as far as he knows, the Chervil family never traded with them and only dealt with the Martin family. Zenedine bursts into laughter, asking if Zed thinks he was bothered by those worthless worms. Zenedine says even if the Martin family holds the rank of second amongst spellcaster families, they are still nothing more than losers who can't even reach the tips of his toes. What reason would he have to trouble himself over the squirming of such worms? This makes Zed wonder if the Arahans were not involved after all. This makes him relieved. At least he did not bring Lacto into enemy territory. He then requests the Lord to grant Lacto Chervil a place under his protection. However, Zenedine immediately refuses, saying he will not permit the Empire's traitor to set foot upon his territory. Zed is certain that the Lord is aware they were falsely accused, until he requests Zenedine to clear Chervil's name. Upon asking why, Zed says Lacto is the finest magic tool craftsman. Surely none but the House of Arahan should possess his talents. And if they take him in and clear his name, the Lord will gain the reputation of rescuing an innocent victim while also greatly strengthening the family's power. Zed is sure Zenedine is pleased he found and brought Lacto to him. There is no question about it. Zenedine now agrees to take him in, but refuses to clear his name. He says Zed should handle it himself, as he brought him here. Zed agrees. To Zed, it doesn't matter if the Lord doesn't get involved personally. In fact, this is better, as he can make luck entirely his, giving him an excuse to leave the family territory. With that, Zed was dismissed. Just as he leaves, the Magic Knight's captain, Callus, appears out of thin air. Apparently, he had been listening to the whole conversation discreetly. When asked for his opinion, he says he shares the Lord's view and that Zed was highly suspicious. Zenedine agrees, saying that on the surface he's just a kid, but inside he's different. Callus comments on how even the first heir wasn't that confident. Zenedine, however, seemed amused to see the kid trying to deceive him. The captain had thought the Lord would punish him, but Zenedine points out how the look in the boy's eyes was too earnest. His eyes showed a determination to get what he wanted, no matter the cost. Zenedine knows better than anyone that being a genius alone is not enough. Only those who transcend genius can lead the family. He looks forward to what lies ahead for the boy and decides to put him on equal footing with his siblings. He has now decided to send him to the sacred mausoleum and tells the captain to find him a suitable date to send Zed on his way. And so Zed, along with his traveling companions, makes his way to their assigned manor. Ryu scans the place, and cleaning it anew would be a pain. However, the 3 assassins were determined to please their lordship and suggested insisted they would have everything done in no time. And with that, the cleaning process began. While Zed was busy cleaning the windows, he was approached by members of the Magic Knights. All 20 of them were assigned to him. Upon questioning, one of the Magic Knights revealed that it had been less than 3 months since they joined the Magic Knights. This makes them all 5th Circle mages. Zed was a bit disappointed that they're all rookies, but he supposes that is to be expected since his siblings already had their pick. And as he sees the Magic Knights' faces, he realizes they're all thinking the same thing, wondering if they got the short end of the stick. He greets them all, saying he looks forward to working with them. The Magic Knight's captain questions what he was doing just now, to which Zed reveals he was cleaning. However, the captain still seems to be confused, questioning why he was doing it himself. Zed frowns, asking if he expects him to sit around while his own place gets cleaned. Zed decides it is perfect timing and tells the Magic Knights to come help as well. They were all taken aback, wondering if they were really tasked with this. Zed says if he can do it, it shouldn't be much for them, and so the Magic Knights immediately get to cleaning. Zed has the Magic Knights with water magic clean the floors with it. As for those with wind magic, they were told to clear the dust off the roof. Pretty humbling experience. The place was soon spick and span. Zed assigns everyone rooms. Ryu then reminds Zed how they do not have any food. With what they have, there is nowhere near enough. Zed never imagined he would have to worry about meals in a noble house. It was a problem indeed. Zed begins to ponder and remembers that the nearest place from here is Tunda's manor. The captain of the Magic Knights affirms but is shocked to see that he's planning to see Lord Tunda. When asked questions about whether there is a reason he shouldn't plan on it, the captain says he thinks it would be better to find another way. He explains that for a sibling to visit another sibling's manor uninvited is considered a declaration of war. Zed smirks, saying this is actually perfect, as he was planning to confront him anywhere. Meanwhile, in Tunda's manor, it was havoc during mealtime. The staff was having a difficult time with the Lord's tantrums over onions. Yes, onions. Just then, Tunda's butler Grace appears and suggests the master treat his servants with kindness. Tunda only grows furious, pointing out that it is because she keeps going easy on them that they are getting cocky. Grace also tells him not to be picky with food, as eating only what he likes will harm his health. Tunda, however, continues to throw a tantrum, saying he does not like onions, and if they bring them again, he will kill them. Grace internally sighs. Pampering this brat was such a pain. She wonders if the enchantment spell has already worn off. She decides to put a stronger spell on tonight. Just then, a maid instantly barges into the dining area, telling Grace they have an emergency. The young Master Zed has arrived outside. Grace was shocked to see that he came here at night without an invitation, because this is a clear declaration of war. She instantly orders all the Magic Knights to gather. However, when asked, the maid reveals that young Master Zed is here alone. And honestly, that single sentence carried more menace than most war speeches in fantasy history. Before the maid could even finish announcing his arrival, Zed casually walks into Tunda's dining room like he pays the mortgage. His audacity left everyone speechless. With a confident smile, he pointed out that they were in the middle of their meal. Social anxiety? Never heard of her. Tunda's Magic Knights instantly surround Zed. Zed points out how they see him and still do not greet him. One of the guards awkwardly greets him and asks what brings him here. However, Zed turns his attention towards Grace, asking if she is the butler of this place. His eyes darken as he coldly questions her if she is not going to greet him. Grace couldn't understand what was going on. This brought so much confidence, even though he had never even been someone she needed to keep an eye on. She felt a strange sensation from him and wondered if he was back because he had awakened his mana. Imagine getting performance reviewed by the guy everyone thought was a background character. She remained silent for quite a while before giving in and introducing herself as young Master Tunda's butler. She could not believe she was bowing her head to a failure like him. To her shock, Zed commented that acting as the house's true power had gone to her head, as if she owned the place. Grace was absolutely astonished and realized that Zed was not the same kid she knew. She wonders what happened to him in the world and why he came here with an attitude like that, no less. She also becomes suspicious whether he has something up his sleeve. As she examines him, she becomes even more shocked to see the priest's mark on his body. Tunda seriously stood up and asked if he shouldn't greet his big brother first. It questions what makes him think he can barge in here like this, and whether he has forgotten who they are. Zed sighs. In a mocking tone, he tells his big brother that he has nothing to say to him, as he is nothing but a puppet. Tunda becomes irritated and asks if he just talked down to him. Zed continues to feel amused, asking if it pisses him off. Tunda states it is obvious, considering he is his older brother. He then activates his flames, saying he learned a new spell recently, and so this is a perfect chance to try this on him, since showing up here means he wants war. He assures Zed that he will be speaking to him with respect before he knows it. However, Grace immediately grabs his hand, asserting that he stopped this incident. Tunda continues throwing a fit, but Grace holds him back, telling him to stay quiet for now, and she will explain everything later. She then instantly begins to apologize to Zed on Tunda's behalf. Zed smirks, remarking that at least the butler is quick on the uptake. She is aware that a priest's guarantee is essentially the Emperor's guarantee, and so if something happens to Zed, an Imperial investigator will be dispatched here. And when they do, Grace's mana circuit will be cut off. That's how much their head hates the Emperor, after all. Grace knew she could not lay her hand on Zed now, and would just have him turn back for now. And so she politely questions Zed, "What brings you here?" Zed calls out her ambitions as far too grand for that of a butler. Grace remains calm and suggests that he start his business here. Zed eventually reveals that he has nothing to eat at his mansion right now, and was hoping they could share a little. Grace was way too irritated by this sudden canon event, and clearly, she was not being paid fairly for this. She has the staff who bring all the meat and bread they have. And so, Zed's horse was packed with supplies for his estate. He assures Grace that starting tomorrow, they will be seeing each other a lot more and takes his leave. Grace watches him leave while mentally writing the world's longest villain origin story. When Zed returned to his estate, the Magic Knights were shocked to see the feast he had brought. He orders Earth Mages to dig a hole and for Fire Mages to start a fire. They then began to barbecue. Zed then hears the Magic Knights talk about how it has been a long time since they had a BBQ like this outside. In fact, the barbecue is the first ever since they joined the Arahan family. Apparently, roasting meat over a fire has always been a knight's tradition, and among mages like them, this is considered taboo. Zed couldn't believe that mages were not allowed outdoors for BBQs. Imagine mastering 5 circles of magic only to have society ban kebab. Truly the darkest fantasy timeline. One of the Magic Knights reveals how knights burn so much stamina that they eat meat just about anywhere. So basically, they cannot eat something that's good just because it is part of knightly culture. Zed had never heard of such nonsense before. Then again, he barely ever played as a mage. Zed calls Zainab for leading such tiresome lives and assures them that they can eat whatever they want because there is no point in nitpicking over things like this. He suggests that from now on they forget unstated rules or taboos here, and at least in his mention, he wouldn't question it. Do whatever you want and eat whatever you want, as long as you do your job right. He assures them that he won't blame them for anything else. The Magic Knights were shocked to hear his words and immediately obliged. Zed knew he had to act before the window closed. He needs to get busy now since he declared war last night. The scene shifts to a guy begging Zed not to take this property because this is the only one his late father left him. However, Zed says he is aware that the real owner of this property is Tunda, though it may be under his name. Arahan heirs typically avoid buying property under their own names since that could easily be discovered by their siblings. And that is exactly what Zed plans to exploit. He had brought Magic Knights with him to back him up. He knew it was a signal declaring a power struggle and not just a simple property deal. The puppet owner assures Zed that he does not have the deed and young Master Tunda has it. Zed already had an idea, so he came prepared. He shows the puppet owner a document telling him to sign it. He says the contract and the mayor's seals are enough to make it look real. He promises to pay the puppet owner double and guarantee his life too, but if he does not sign, he will die right here. He even swears on the name of the Arahan family. And so the puppet owner had no choice but to sign. And so as of today, Zed is the new landlord of the property. The scene shifts to the mayor's office in City Hall. Zed asks the mayor, Douglas, to help notarize it right away. The mayor takes a look at the property documents, saying it is a legitimate transaction, so as long as Zed settles the balance, there is no issue. Because there have been many theft cases, they keep 2 records for every deed to prevent injustice. Zed knew someone wouldn't be happy about this once they found out. His attention diverts as the mayor calls him peculiar. Upon questioning, the mayor reveals that normally, the Arahan heirs never buy property under their own name. Zed reveals that he is already aware of this, but it does not concern him. To him, there is no need to leave an opening. All of a sudden, there was chaos behind the doors, and a woman forced her way inside. Zed had expected her arrival, Grace Monet. The mayor becomes furious and reminds her how the use of mana is forbidden here. However, Grace calls Zed out for breaking the rules. She reminds them that the building belonged to young Master Tunda. She cannot stay quiet after a backstab like this. Zed says he has no idea what she's talking about because the owner on paper was Warren Beatty. Gaslighting? No. This is professionally licensed bureaucratic warfare. His gaslighting only infuriates Grace further, and she reminds him that he is making a big mistake right now and is not understanding the consequences of his actions. Zed affirms that she is the one making a mistake, and he has no idea why she's acting so high and mighty without even reading the situation. Grace swears on her title, and as the young master's butler that Zed will pay for today's action. Zed just laughs at her threats. He coldly says he returns both favors and grudges tenfold, and she is the one who shouldn't forget the Arahan family creed. If she comes at him, she will lose everything. Eddie, leader of the underworld, now arrives at Zed's newly acquired property. If you don't remember the deal between the two, Zed proposed a partnership. He would establish Eddie's information agency under Arahan's protection with a building and magic night guard. In return, he took the Kinjera triplets. And so now, Zed informs Eddie that he will be running this place from now on. Eddie confesses how he had his doubts about Zed, but he pulled it off faster than he expected. My guy looked at Zed like, hold on, you actually weren't bluffing? Eddie later hands Zed a piece of paper, revealing it to be a list of mages in NECA currently in hiding. Zed wouldn't understand the purpose, so Eddie reminds him that he needs a teacher. After all, in his family, it's all about becoming stronger. As for Zed, he doesn't have a proper teacher as far as Eddie knows. Zed had thought about this before, and thanks to Eddie for looking out for him. Eddie says the stronger Zed becomes, the easier things are for him. They are business partners after all. Zed takes a quick look at the list, but not a single name rings a bell, but that is to be expected. He asks for Eddie's recommendation, who says it has to be number 1 without a doubt, Krang Gutra. Seeing his confused face, Eddie questions if he hasn't heard of the Gutra family. Zed says no, so Eddie reveals how they used to be a well-known mercenary group in the West. That's all in the past now, though. Zed was a bit surprised to hear that mages used to work as mercenaries. Eddie says that for mid-tier families, nothing pays better than mercenary work. The only issue was their reputation, as people did not think very highly of them. One of the Kinjera triplets speaks up, saying he has heard of them too. People used to say one member of the Gutra family was worth more than a whole mercenary crew. Eddie affirms, saying they were known for their skill and did not come cheaply either, so only wealthy nobles could afford them. He assured Zed that he could learn a lot from this teacher. Besides, he is not a typical mage. Eddie smirks, exposing how the assassins told him. Loyal assassins until the boss asks, so what's the weird kid like? Then suddenly it's a full PowerPoint presentation with graphs and references. Zed burst into laughter. He agrees that this teacher would know a lot, having worked as a mercenary. Eddie agrees, saying he is probably skilled in scouting and assassinations too. Plus, he has got survival skills carved into him after all he went through, and so he is the perfect teacher for his Zed. Compared to Krang Gutra, the others are not even worth considering. Zed then asks, why did he write so many names? For a long time, Eddie remains quiet, having no answer. The scene shifts to Tunda throwing yet another tantrum. He was pretty mad at Zed for even daring to touch his building and wanted to kill him. He lashes out at Grace, asking what the hell she was doing while things got this bad. He continues to rage bait her, rambling about how much money that building was bringing. However, she eventually loses it and draws closer towards him, urging him to look her in the eye. She was using her mana to practically hypnotize him. Tunda begins to lose consciousness as Grace orders him to keep his voice down because he is being too noisy. Tunda grows mellow and apologizes. Grace sighs in relief and sits down, wondering how she should get rid of Zed. She chuckles as she stares at Tunda, saying she will need to use some of his private funds. Tunda seems to be in a controlled state and says that she can take as much as she needs. Grace was happy and decided to hire the priciest people money can buy and seal their mouths with charm magic just in case they're caught. She then strokes Tundra's hair, grinning madly and commenting how he is so cute when he listens so well. The scene shifts to Libera Hotel, said to be the finest in Nekka. Zed is the manager. He is here to find someone. However, he does not allow Eddie to enter, revealing that only nobles are allowed inside. Zed knew it could not be helped, so he told Eddie to wait outside. Eddie seemed to be frustrated, rambling about how this is a rotten world, treating only nobles like people. Zed can't even disagree. Anyways, he made his way inside the luxurious hotel. The place was reeking of money. Making his way towards the receptionist, he reveals how he wants to check the guest list. The woman continues to bring up more policies, revealing that they can provide him with a list of general guests, but under hotel policy, access to suite guest information is restricted. After experiencing the perks of being part of the Arahan family, this was pretty frustrating for Zed, but he knew there was nothing they could do about it. The fact that they are not afraid of an Arahan even while living in Nekka means that this hotel must belong to one of his brothers. With this much wealth, it has to be the first or second heir, which means Zed cannot rely on his family name here. The receptionist slides the general guest list towards his direction. After checking it out, Zed concludes that his target is not in the general rooms. It looks like mercenary work really does bring in the money. He is aware that it would be hard for Eddie to find out much beyond the fact that Krang Gutra is staying here, and so he begins to wonder how to track him down. He soon gets distracted from his thoughts as he hears a man complaining about the hotel. He yells about how he ordered beef from Verde Mountain and brought garbage instead. He continues to argue with the staff member. This man had Gordon Ramsay standards with Walmart customer service energy. Zed was surprised to hear him create drama, thinking of him as a messed up jerk. However, as soon as he sees the man, his eyes widen in shock. He was a bald man with a wiry build. Eddie had told him how eccentric the target is, so he needs a backup plan in case he cannot win him over. Zed quietly makes his way up the stairs, realizing that this guy is unbearable and not just eccentric. The man continues to complain, saying he will not pay a dime for the room if he has not brought real beef. He approaches the man, who does not seem pleased to see him. Krang Gutra narrows his eyes at him, remarking that the shabby aura he sensed was from him. Krang woke up and chose violence before breakfast. He just continues to speak about Zed while walking away from him, saying that bumping into a brat from the Arahan family this early is not what he expected. And now his whole days grew. Zed had no idea what this old man's deal was. A bad attitude is one thing, but being rude to an Arahan is another, making him wonder if he hates his family or something. Zed makes his way outside towards Eddie, who rushes towards him, pointing out how that old man was Krang Gutra. Zed sighs deeply, making Eddie realize that he has met him already. He says he had already told him how eccentric he is. Zed corrects him that he is nastier. Eddie says reclusive masters tend to be kind of odd, but they can look for someone else if Zed does not like him. However, Zed points out that the rest are just retired 5th or 6th circle mate. He has been training and working out, but his mana stats are still stuck at 5. alive. He cannot just let it sit there, but he cannot improve his mana through meditation as other mages do. Frustrated beyond belief, Zed becomes determined to find the old man and dashes, wondering, where did he go? Nothing screams future master-disciple relationship quite like chasing an angry grandpa through town before he files a restraining order. Eddie tries his best to keep up with him. When Zed questions if the guy has something against his family, Eddie says Krang has always been such a mystery. If not for that tattoo on his forehead, no one would have known he was from the Gutra family. He discloses that the claws and fangs are the Gutra family symbol. He soon spots their target. Zed reveals how earlier he went on about mountain beef, and it looks like he actually went out for meat after all. In that moment, Zed remembers something. Torres once promised him the finest cut of mountain beef that is only supplied to the Bahal family. He wonders if he can use that as a way to start a conversation. He is not the kind of mage who trains through meditation. Obviously, the kind of mentor he needs is not some conventional mage either. He decides to try to talk to the old man one more time, even though it pisses him off, and so he musters up enough patience to approach the rage-baiting old man. But Krang curses, wondering if he cannot eat in peace. He basically yells at Zed, questioning why he is here again and if someone sent him to charge him for the hotel or something. So much for trying to start a conversation. This old man really has a terrible personality. Zed eventually gives up on finding a mentor and turns to leave. However, all of a sudden, some vicious energy rushes towards him. Zed doesn't get a chance to process things so fast and remains frozen in place. However, Krang immediately reacts and shields him from the attack. Zed remains astounded, asking the old man if he really just blocked the daggers by focusing mana into his finger. Krang calls him out for having sharp eyes and asks if he could have dodged it as well. Zed affirms but points out how he was the one who moved first. What's incredible is that Krang blocked them without even looking at the daggers, and in that split second he even managed to reposition himself. Krang tells him not to get the wrong idea, and that he only saved him because if he died, he would be in trouble just for being near him. He then shoots a knowing look towards Zed, pointing out how this does not feel like the right time for a conversation. Zed could sense a stronger murderous aura right now. It seems a fight has broken out. All of a sudden, they were surrounded by knights. Zed could tell that Grace was making her moves already. Krang gives him an I told you so look, pointing out how they're targeting Zed. Zed says he already knew that. Krang asks if he needs help, but Zed says small fries are still small fries even if they gang up on you. Krang scoffs, remarking that it's the Arahan family for you, always thinking you're above everyone else. He knew having an Arhandi in front of him would mean nothing but trouble, but for now, he decides to see how the boy deals with it. He will step in only if things get dangerous. The mercenaries also did not seem to care for the old man, and just told him to stay out of this if he did not want to die. Krang assures them he does not mind and tells them to carry on, as he wouldn't miss such a good show for anything. However, the mercenaries tell him to get lost, but halt as they see the Gutra family's tattoo. They were shocked to see the legendary Krang Gutra in person and began to deeply apologize for not recognizing her. They instantly go down on their knees, considering that he was a respected senior in their field. Krang says he doesn't remember ever having them as juniors. The mercenaries began to reveal that they are from the Jotma Mercenary Guild. This seemed pretty excited to talk with the legendary Gutra of the mercenary world. On the other hand, Zed watches as a mere background character, wondering if he is a joke to them. Krang, however, instantly grows furious. His mood had shifted as he called out his juniors, asking if they really called themselves mercenaries. He questions, since when did mercenaries work as assassins? He firmly states that they are not mercenaries and are just filthy thugs who cannot tell right from wrong. The mercenaries began to apologize, revealing that things have been rough lately and they only took this job to feed their family. Krang doesn't show mercy and says that there is no excuse. Even mercenaries must uphold a righteous cause and justification. Those who will do anything for money are not mercenaries. They're nothing but errand boys. The mercenaries seemed to agree with him on everything and promised not to forget his words. Zed still couldn't believe the scene he was witnessing. Krang grins, admitting that they at least know how to show respect. He then tells them to finish what they started, considering they had accepted the job. Everyone, including Zed, remained taken aback. Krang's lectures have a true mercenary, seeing every job through to the end. The mercenaries agree, promising never to take an assassination request again after this mission. Krang praises them and tells them to do their work, promising not to interfere. Zed remains frozen in place, wondering if this really just happened. Now the mercenaries were even more hyped up after meeting their legendary role model. Zed, on the other hand, was beyond irritated, wondering if the old man is just messing with him. He instantly activates his transcendence magic. The mercenaries, along with Krang, were taken aback as they recognized the lightning aura. They couldn't believe that someone in the Arahan family had unlocked it. Krang was also impressed by the strange aura. All of a sudden, the triplets appeared. They revealed how they heard the job was first brought to them through the beggars. They rushed over as soon as they heard that. Zed smiles, realizing that they also try to hire his assassin. It's clear just how mad they are right now. When they ask their lordship who is behind all this, Zed stares at the mercenaries, stating that it is something they know better than him. However, the mercenaries refused, saying they never revealed their clients. Zed decides to just beat it out of them and orders the triplets to make the mercenaries kneel before him. The only thing he does not have is hard evidence. Hearing his orders, the triplets immediately immediately get to work. Krang now intervenes, telling him to back off before they throw their lives away, as they are not ready to handle them. He assures Zed that no torture will get them to talk. Zed argues that he will deal with it himself. However, he was surprised when Krang revealed that the mercenaries are under an enchantment spell, and without breaking the spell, they cannot utter a single word. He grinned, saying the fact that Zed cannot even recognize such a petty spell tells him he still has a long way to go. He offers to break the spell if they make a deal. Krang confesses that he is curious about Zed's lightning aura and his true ability. He suggests this spar. He promises to grant Zed's wish if he wins. He says he's not telling him to defeat him because that is impossible. But if Zed so much as grazes him, then he will count that as his victory. Zed grins, realizing he now has an opportunity. And so he accepts the deal and sees for himself whether Krang is worthy of being his mentor or not. As his mana intensifies, Krang laughs at his spirit. However, he points out that this place is too small for a spar. Before Zed could process things, Krang had pulled him along with him using teleportation. They make their way towards the city's outskirts. Krang reveals he comes here whenever he is bored. He then smiles at Zed, telling him to show him what he has got. Zed was still processing the teleportation in the blink of an eye. He heard that only high mages of the 7th circle or above can use teleportation, and so he asks Krang if he is also of the 7th circle. Krang chuckles, asking Zed if he is hung up on circles as well. He says mages or knights, they all think rank is what decides strength without realizing how useless it really is. Bro basically looked at the entire ranking system and said, skill issue. Krang affirms that there are far more important things than ranks. In a real fight, rank alone does not decide the winner. Countless other factors can determine the outcome, like the kind of experience you get from a brush with death, and the instincts your body learns so well, they become second nature. Zed knew he was right. Clark and the Bahal family's youngest knight were far above him in rank, and circles are really just a way to categorize his power, not an absolute measure of strength. Zed grins in satisfaction, never thinking he would meet someone who shares his thoughts. This guy is the first in the world to put importance on something other than circle. Krang seems to grow irritated, questioning what has got him grinning like that. Krang believed that this boy did not agree with him and supposes this is what happens with people who follow the mainstream. They all believed their way was the only correct one. Zed denies revealing how he totally agrees with him and has learnt that the hard way, fighting all kinds of opponents. Krang scoffs, saying these are bold words coming from a kid. Zed prepares his stance, saying he will show him so he will know his words are true. His lightning aura booms throughout the area, and Krang couldn't help but admit it was impressive. No wonder people call it a dream attribute. Zed tells the man to give it his all, and he won't accept any excuses afterward. Zed plans on using the old man's preconceptions against him. He will think a mage always keeps their distance. Krang might be a 7th circle mage, but if Zed strikes the split second he's rattled, he can get right up to him. But that's what he thinks. Krang begins to laugh, telling him not to worry because the predator gives its all even to catch a rabbit. And with that, their fight began. Zed wastes no time in closing the distance between them. Just when he thought he could reach the old man, his attacks proved fruitless. Krang launched multiple attacks on him, and Zed was quick enough to dodge. He retracts and admits that Zed has sharp senses. If he had hesitated even a split second, his body would have been pierced. Zed knew he was right, even a 1/10 of a second slower, and he would have been full of holes. He now wonders if this old man is really planning to go all out, and as he comes to think of it, he never saw the old man chant a spell. Krang repeats his advice, keep using it, and it becomes second nature, and once it's second nature, you can unleash it quickly, anytime. He then points out how lightning aura is known for its explosive power. He finds it impressive that Zed has figured out its nature and pushed it for speed. But Zed was a bit agitated because the old man did not seem surprised at all. Krang shrugs, saying he just expected a mage throwing punches. He points out that from the stance they took at the start, it was pretty clear he was going for close quarters combat. Seeing Zed grow curious, he reveals that his chin and solar plexus flanks were all covering the vital spots, and his stance allows him to kick at any moment. No ordinary mage stands like that. Zed was a bit taken aback to see that this old man could read him with just one look. Krang prepares himself, stating that if this is all Zed has got, he is going to be very disappointed. He then casually takes his seat, suggesting he sees if Zed has any tricks hidden away. Imagine disrespecting someone so badly you start looking bored during the boss fight. Zed seemed to have an ego break, considering the man was totally looking down on him. He decides to close in carefully because with this old man's eyes, he will spot it the moment he activates his trait. He decides to distract him, then trigger the trait and strike. With great speed, he rushes around the old man. Zed knew this could be his last chance, and he had to be careful. But to his annoyance, the old man sat casually with no worry in the world, even yawning. It was as if he were taunting him. However, as the taunting grew, he lost it and began to close in, activating his persistent challenger trait. He had full hopes of it working this time, and he grabbed the old man from behind. But to his utter surprise, Bro got hit with the oldest it was a shadow clone all along trick in anime history. Naruto would have been proud. Krang laughs, calling him a fool. He points out how Zed was so focused on his own move that he never considered his. Zed was now trapped by a magic circle, unable to move. Soon, chains began to surround him, and Krang says that a predator crouches before it hurts. As for Zed, he walked right into it. He urges him to admit his defeat if he wants to be released. It was getting hard for Zed to breathe. He didn't think the difference between them would be this large. Krang suggests the boy quit being stubborn or he will die. Zed was way too frustrated and continued to huff and puff, wondering if this was really the end. His persistent challenger trait was now deactivated. In that moment, he comes to a realization. He is the challenger in this world. The life he wanted. This is exactly what he wanted, and he likes this world. It is full of strong people, and Zed can live as a challenger all his life. So why is he acting like this now? He remembers Krang was the one who said a predator gives its all even to catch a rabbit. Maybe he thought of himself as the rabbit long before they even began. He even forgot his 50-50 odds and the stance of a challenger. Victory comes from believing in oneself, and Zed fails to do that. He cannot let things end like this. His eyes filled with determination once again as he realized he had to be the predator until the moment his life ended. And with that, he activates his persistent challenger trait, once again unlocking a new skill. Lightning strikes. Krang could sense the lightning aura, wondering if the boy still had some strength left. Krang watches in genuine astonishment as the battlefield becomes engulfed in brilliant lightning. People, we have officially reached the point where the tutorial boss says, "Hold on, that's new." Zed had activated his lightning strike yet again. Krang asks if he is trying to get himself killed. He tries his best to make the kid quit it already, but to no avail. The intensity of the strikes continued to increase second by second until finally the chains trapping Zed finally began to crack. Krang watches with genuine disbelief as the impossible happened. The brat actually broke free. At this point, Krang was probably wondering whether he was training a disciple or witnessing the world's most stubborn cockroach. Zed admits the guy is incredibly strong and that he has a lot to learn from him. However, in the end, victory will be his. He smiles crazily, affirming that he will win and make Krang his master. Krang was a bit taken aback, questioning if he was telling him to teach a kid from the Arahan family. He says he would rather die if that is what he is going to be doing in his old age. Zed asserts once again that he will win no matter what it takes. He won't give up ever. Krang sighs, assuring him that he won't be able to even graze him, no matter how hard he tries. He suggests the kid end the play. He was now determined to put Zed down for good, now that he knew what the kid was after. He scoffs at the kid's arrogance as he states that he has a 50-50 chance of winning. He begins to activate his powers, telling Zed that if he throws himself at him this time, he will really kill him. It does not matter if he is from the Arahan family or not. Zed smiles like an absolute lunatic, suggesting he does exactly that and strikes with real killing intent. Bro's confidence was so irrational, it would have gotten him hired as a crypto influencer. Krang couldn't believe this kid. There is a limit to how reckless one can be, after all. The air was surrounded by Krang's powers. Zed curiously recognizes it as the 8th Circle Mage Spear of Judgment. He knew that spells were magic skills that drew countless players into becoming mages. It was impressive to see that this old man really managed to hide the fact that he is an 8th Circle Mage. Krang's demeanor darkens as he questions the kid. How could he possibly know that? The ground underneath them shook terribly. Krang's tone had also changed, and he apologetically tells the kid that he really has to die here now. Zed didn't get scared and said he had even less reason to back down now. He then asks for his permission to showcase his final move, but deep inside he was a bit skeptical, wondering if he could survive a strike from the Sphere of Judgment. Obviously no. There is no chance of surviving that, but that bleak chance will become his opportunity. Krang unleashes his wrath on the kid, suggesting that he die. He even watches in disappointment as the kid stubbornly tries to dodge. He tells him that one must know when to give up. He intensifies his powers. But to his shock, Zed had suddenly activated the immortal gambler trait. In just a few seconds, Zed closed the distance between them and grabbed Krang by the collar. Zed smiles and wastes no more time, grabbing the guy by his hand and slamming him onto the ground. Krang remains too stunned to speak or even move. Clearly, the man was having an existential crisis, wondering how on earth this could happen. Who would have thought he would end up losing to a kid? Clearly a disgrace at his age. The emotional damage alone probably dealt more damage than the throw itself. However, this stubborn kid had now fainted. Krang ends up laughing and tries to free himself from Zed's grip. It has been 7 years since he left his cursed mercenary life. Krang thought he would have nothing left to strive for, but to think he would meet a stubborn rascal who can nullify magic with some strange power and fight with everything he has got to win that he had never expected. He curiously stares at the unconscious boy, wondering if they really threw a kid like this into the prison camp. It seems Zenadine has already gone senile. Krang heard Zed only unlocked mana recently, and it was hard to believe how fast he has grown. In a few years, he might make a name for himself in the Empire. Or he might actually become a figure of supreme authority like Temud. When someone like that emerges again, this empire will undergo a great change. Krang is aware of that. If Zed can keep up with him, he should be able to meet these expectations. Thinking about the plans for the future already hypes the old man up, and he begins to kick Zed, telling him to quit sleeping and get up. After all, there is no time to waste. Certified old-school mentor behavior. Therapy? Never heard of it. Physical violence builds character apparently, but it seems Zed really pushed himself way too far. Krang begins to check up on his mana circuit. To his astonishment, the boy hasn't even reached the first circle. Though his mana was brilliant, his circuit is pathetic. He couldn't understand how it was even possible. He couldn't tell if this boy was a genius or just an unlucky brat. His attention diverged as he sensed someone nearby. It took him by surprise because this is supposed to be a place only he knows. But then he guesses Zed's lightning and his spear of judgment have drawn too much attention. He watches in surprise as some triplets worriedly rush their way towards Zed, calling him your lordship. The Kinjera triplets. They call Krang an old fart, asking what he did to him. Krang tells them to shut up and get out of here if they do not want to die. He then whispers how the Black Mirror Squad guys are everywhere. They soon reveal their presence and greet Krang Gutra. Krang was surprised to see that they knew him, and it must mean they had some authority. The captain of the Black Mirror Squad introduces himself as Robin. He says it is an honor to stand before the hero of the Great Magic War. Robin confesses how they have been ordered to check on young Master Zed. They ask for Krang's permission, but he instantly activates his powers. He then grins, telling them to try if they can. Bro came to retrieve young Master Zed and accidentally discovered he'd meet an angry grandpa mentor's wrath. Robin frowns and coldly reminds the old man that Zed is one of the Arahans and that Krang does not want to be their enemy. Krang remains calm and tells him not to worry because he wouldn't kill his pupil with his own hand. He is only unconscious for the moment, so he tells the squad to quit pestering him and get lost. Robin was taken aback by his words. He could do nothing except shield himself for now against this legendary man. It is because he knew this old man was not someone they could handle. They would need someone like Commander Callus of the Magic Knights to deal with him. Even so, they cannot just leave without doing anything. He tries to request Krang once again to check on the young master's condition, promising to be on their way immediately after that. Humbled for sure, Krang still refuses. Robin coldly reminds the man that he cannot oppose the House of Arahan and survive. Therefore, he does not understand why he is hindering them now when he had been living the life of seclusion. Krang confesses that he has found a goal he wants to achieve at this age, and the ones standing in the way right now are they. Suddenly, Robin reports something discreetly and reveals how the Lord has ordered them to return for now. Krang scoffs, stating it is obvious unless he plans to come here himself. Robin reminds the man that the Lord has also said he would pay the price for what happened today. Krang clearly did not give a flying fuck and suggested they get lost. Before disappearing, Robin reminds him that the Arahan family never breaks its word, and he cannot say when that day will come, but they will seek revenge. Krang calls them arrogant pests, but he knows his little defiance is going to cost him dearly. A man's final years should be peaceful, but now his won't be. It seems the Arahan leader knows his son is not an ordinary mage, which is why he is keeping Krang alive for now. He wonders why Zed had to be born into the Arahan family. If he had been born elsewhere, he could have lived a far more comfortable life. Poor kid, he thinks, bound to a family that pits siblings against one another, but then he thinks it might be for the best. As long as he guides this boy, he won't become that kind of monster. It seems Krang has taken quite the burden on himself. The scene shifts to Eddie's secret base. Zed regains consciousness and instantly recognizes the place. The triplets instantly rushed towards his side, but what shocked Zed the most was seeing Krang. He asked what happened. The triplets reveal that they heard the old man call Zed's master. It is then that Zed remembers how he won. He then takes note of the Jotma mercenary guild. Apparently, Krang removed their enchantment spell, and they were about to question who was behind the assassination attempt. Zed reminds Krang of how he said he didn't want to get involved. Krang feigns innocence, saying he must forget things due to his age. Old man really just pulled the I'm retired card. Zed instantly gets to work and asks one of the mercenaries if it was Grace, Tunda's butler. He could tell from the guy's expressions that it was way too obvious and wondered if he could really get them to put on a convincing act later. He assures the mercenaries that he won't hold it against them despite their attempt, but he has a condition. They must report to Grace that the mission failed due to unfavorable circumstance, and when she gives the next order, they must report it to Zed. He firmly orders them to continue serving as Grace's mercenaries until the very end. With that, a deal was struck. Zed knew it was not the time to go after Grace yet. He will wait for the perfect chance to eliminate her and seize Tunda's forces and holdings at the same time. It is true that these mercenaries could always betray him if it were not for the fact that Krang is on his side now. The mercenaries should know which side to take. One of the triplets then reports to Zed how Ryu asked them to pass this message along. Zed guesses it has to do with family affairs, considering Ryu is his butler now. Apparently, Ryu said, there is a sacred mausoleum ceremony early next month, and the Butler Council has instructed him to prepare thoroughly. It seems there will be a certification rite, and there is a meeting with the Lord of the House before departure. Zed knew that the ceremony was where pure bloodlines were certified, and candidacy for the family heir was granted. He couldn't understand why it was happening so soon, even though he is not even 20 yet. He wonders, what could the Lord be thinking? Being a candidate for the next family head has its advantages, but also some clear downside. The main advantage is the freedom to travel anywhere in the empire outside the family's domain. Like in Torres's case, there are times when heirs are tasked with family affairs, but that is also when the sibling sabotage begins, sparking infighting. Failing to complete a mission means being branded incompetent, and an incompetent candidate is cast aside by the Lord and the Elder. There are not even 10 days left for this ceremony, so he knew they had a lot to prepare for. Krang seemed to have understood the situation as well, and he says that training will have to wait until the ceremony is over. Krang said it will be fine, but he will teach him as promised, with one condition. Zed Zed must pay him 100 gold points each month, and he will allow Zed to call him master. Zed was a bit confused because he thought Krang had plenty of money already. 2 days passed by. The mercenaries' leader breaks down, revealing how that mad woman Grace slaughtered 5 of their men, calling it the price of their failure. They explained they had to retreat because Zed was guarded by the magic knights, and they begged for more time. Zed couldn't help but feel truly sorry for what happened and sincerely apologizes. However, the mercenary assures him that none of this is his fault. It is just that Sir Gutra's words proved true, and that woman looked down on them as if they were nothing. He then urges Zed to help them take revenge. Zed firmly assures him that Grace will die by his hand, swearing it on the name of his family and his own. But somebody couldn't help but appreciate him. Zed then turns to Eddie and asks how much of Tunda's influence is still standing. Eddie reveals that there is one pathetic intel group and 2 buildings on the outskirts of the city. The intel group is disguised as a merchant guild, and they seem to move freely around the city, gathering all kinds of intel. Zed grins knowingly. He then tasks the triplets and Eddie to handle something for him. As for the mercenary guild, Zed assures them that he will look after them for now, so they must stay at Eddie's place and not worry about the money. The mercenary leader expresses his gratitude and wonders how they can even repay him. He then remembered something and warns Zed to be careful of that woman because her eyes were not human. He reveals how Grace gave off a terrifying aura and looked like she could cause a catastrophe at any moment. Therefore, Zed must be careful. At this point, Grace wasn't just giving evil stepmother vibes anymore. The scene shifts to the night before the ceremony. Time really flew while Zed was getting things ready. The item he asked Sir Lacto for just got finished today. He has also been keeping an eye on Grace. No doubt she will make her move at tomorrow's ceremony. Krang questions if Zed likes his new hideout place because it has a pretty great view of the town. Zed asks if he really just called him out to show him the night view. Krang was disappointed and called him an emotionally hollow kid. Turns out he had prepared a lot of training stuff for Zed. He warns the boy to brace himself better after the ceremony. Every Manhwa mentor eventually reaches the stage where their lesson plan becomes legally classified as torture. Zed grins, saying he wouldn't have it any other way. Krang points towards the tables and tells him to try breaking through this. Zed argues that this might expose this place as well. Krang tells him to forget about his lightning strike and break it with his fist. Zed scoffs, annoying Krang, who warns him not to click his tongue at his master. Zed activates his transcendence magic and takes note of how the object is small and seems easy to break. However, he will need to be at least a first circle mage to crack this mana stone, and he probably cannot break it yet. Krang tells him to hurry up. With fierce determination, Zed tries to crack through the object, and to his shock, he succeeds. Krang didn't seem too surprised and told him to try breaking the next one. Zed successfully manages to break through the second one as well, shocking him because he heard you need to be at least the second circle to break through this. Krang explains that anyone who wields mana bears a ring. It surrounds the heart, and the more rings you have, the higher you rise. But Zed does not even have one full ring, and right now he only has half of one. In this game, a full stat is 100 to 10 points, equal to the first circle, which means with just 5 points, Zed is merely a 0.5 circle mage. Normally, when you unlock mana, a ring forms at the same time. Krang asks, what does that tell you? But Zed had no answer. Krang calls him a fool, saying it just proves he is nothing but a fledgling. He discloses how Zed's ring stopped forming while everyone else's is complete. Zed internally hated this old man, but he could say nothing. Krang grins, revealing that the 1/2 circle nobody liked. Zed managed to break a second circle mana stone. Seeing that Zed was still not getting his point, he smacked him on the head, telling him to use his brain for a change. He gives him a scenario. He tells Zed to imagine he has become a 10-circle mage. Now, a human body can only hold 10 rings, but even with the same 10 rings, Zed would be on a level far above everyone else, which means Zed is a genius, perhaps a genius who might surpass Temud. Temud Arahan is basically the origin of everything in Last Saber. The game's official lore starts after his death. Temud was the strongest figure in the lore, a human who once stood as an equal to the Emperor. His mysterious death serves as the main storyline, tying together the beginning and the ending of the game. Zed's eyes were literally about to pop out of his sockets as he heard the old man. Imagine your football coach casually saying, "Yeah, I think you might end up better than Messi." That's basically what Krang Gutra just dropped. Krang affirms that no one like Temud has ever existed in the Empire's history, but he thinks Zed might just have what it takes to get there. Zed couldn't believe that the old man really thinks so highly of him, but it is true that breaking a second circle mana stone with just 5 mana points is not exactly normal. Maybe it has something to do with that trait of his? If it is really a passive trait instead of an active one, then it makes sense Zed could break a second circle mana stone even as 1/2 circle. Now that he thinks about it, it does seem out of place. Poison immunity and immortal gambler are traits he earned in the game. Persistent challenger and soul of a champion were probably carried over from the real world. But for the last one, it has nothing to do with our protagonist. He barely even played as a mage character. Plus, it does not look like a simple magic boost either. He gets cut off from his throat as Krang unknowingly calls out to him, telling him not to zone out when his master is talking to him. Zed apologizes, but Krang tells him to go already and wishes him good luck for tomorrow. Zed bows in respect and thanks thanks to his master for today's lesson. But Krang assures him this was no lesson, and he should be better prepared from here onward. Zed suddenly remembers something and asks the man if he would be free tomorrow. The next day at the Arahan mansion, Zenedin's sons presented themselves before their father. Seeing how Tunda was trembling from head to toe, Zed could tell the enchantment spell was gone. He guesses Grace cannot exactly show him like that before the head of the house. Zenedin questions if he is aware of the sacred mausoleum ceremony. Zed affirms that it is the right to validate someone as a pure-blooded member of the Arahan family. Tunda could only muster up the courage to agree with his brother. Zenedin calls him pathetic and orders him to stay silent because he was not asking him. Poor Tunda can't even participate in class without getting hit with "raise your hand first." Zed decides to wrap this up quickly. Zenedin asks him what is granted after the ceremony, to which he replies that one earns the status of heir candidate and the right to don the Cloak of Arahan. The Cloak of Arahan is a powerful magic tool. It is fire-resistant and deflects most blades and arrows. To Zed, the clock itself is worth more than the status of heir candidate. Zenedin states how the Cloak of Arahan has been passed down since Lord Timud, the first head of the house. Wearing it means you are recognized as a true member of this family. Hence, no escort is allowed during the sacred mausoleum ceremony, so the boys must prove themselves worthy of that clock. Once they do, they will be evaluated alongside their brothers. Zed could tell the Lord was giving him a subtle warning that youthful folly will no longer be forgiven, and so he assures the Lord he will keep it in mind. Zenedin warns the two that today will be a rough day for both of them. With that, he dismisses them. Zed instantly stood up and was about to leave when he saw that Tunda was still kneeling and trembling, making him feel bad for the guy. Zenedin watches in amusement as Zed helps Tunda walk out. It seems he does not even regard his brother as a rival. As the two boys leave, the captain reveals himself. He reports to the Lord how they have detected Grace making moves again. To the captain's shock, the Lord orders him to leave the Black Mirror Squad out of this because he wants to see how the little one deals with it. He tries to argue that the young master won't survive this. However, Zenedin did not care and said that if he could not make it through the day, that was all he was ever worth, so he wanted to see how he fared. The captain has no choice but to agree with the Lord's command. Meanwhile, Father of the Year award quietly packed its bags and left the Empire. The scene shifts to the outskirts of the Arahan mansion. Many people gathered. Michael introduces himself as the captain of the guard in charge of Zed's escort. Zed knows the escort team for the ceremony is made up of those who cannot wield mana. They are just capable of dealing with petty thugs or mercenaries at best. Zed introduces himself to Michael as well, suggesting they get moving because the path ahead will be rough. He then watches Tunda tearfully part with Grace, the reason for his mommy issues. His eyes filled with tears as he hugged her, revealing how scared he was during the meeting. Bro looked less like an Arahan heir and more like a toddler on the first day of kindergarten, refusing to let go of his mom's leg. Zed sighs and calls his brother to hurry up because everyone is waiting. He grabs him by hand, suggesting he lead the procession. He ignores Grace and tells Tunda how many people are waiting because of him, and he ought to be ashamed of himself for holding everyone up. He reminds his brother how it will take them at least half a day to climb Mount Trimon, and even if they hurry, the sun will be down by then. Grace quickly pulls Tunda back, saying she knows that already. But she tells Zed that this behavior is not appropriate with lowly underlings present. Zed asks who is she to call them her underlings, considering their employees are officially hired by the Arahan family. He points out how Grace speaks as if she were one of the siblings. He then turns away, saying they're leaving now. Grace tries her best to control her temper, wondering how long Zed's arrogance lasts. She will make sure he dies slowly and painfully, even if he begs for mercy. The Soul began their hike towards Mount Trimon. It was a long journey, and many of them were exhausted by now. Tunda scolds Grace for not thinking about bringing a carriage. He begins to throw a tantrum, asking how she expects him to climb all the way up there on foot. Zed couldn't understand his brother at all, wondering what was so hard about this, but seeing everyone exhausted, he realized they could use a break. Unlike the others, Zed was perfectly fine. Michael was surprised to see this. He never knew a mage could have such strength. He remarks how even young Master Rondo could not climb like this. Zed finds this name pretty familiar. Rondo Arahan is the eldest son of the Arahan family and a mage character from Last Saber, but it seems he is his rival now. Rondo should be about 25 by now, from what Zed remembers. Zed ends the break, suggesting they should get going because their bodies will start to get cold if they rest too long. Michael agrees with him and ushers the others to get moving. Grace makes her way to the front, asking, "What are they doing?" She argues that young Master Tunda still needs a moment to rest. Tunda complains, asking if they cannot rest a bit longer. Michael watches Zed glare at him and assures him that he will bring Tunda along. He tells young Master Zed to take the lead instead. One look from Zed and Bro remembered he had bills to pay. Zed sighs. Tunda's spoiled butt was making everyone's life harder. Zed, on the other hand, was finding the cardio helpful in waking his body up. He then realizes they have been walking for a while since the break, but Tunda has not complained yet. He soon becomes agitated as he sees him being carried by Michael. Bro really activated Uber Premium, Mountain Edition. Zed immediately yanks Tunda off Michael's back and dumps him onto the ground, telling him not to be dead weight if he cannot be useful. He glares at him, asking if it is so hard to pull your your own weight. Tunda clarifies that Michael said he would carry him first. Zed argues that he probably did that because Tunda was whining like a little kid. Tunda was annoyed and asked why the hell he cared if he was getting carried and suggested he mind his own business. Zed addresses everyone and says anyone who helps Tunda from this point on will be held accountable. He firmly says that climbing to the mausoleum on one's own is part of the ritual, and whoever tries to interfere will pay for it. From now on, they will move at the lead space, and anyone who can't will be abandoned. And so the guards began to follow his lead. It was now sunset time, and they had reached the summit of the mountain. The knights instantly sigh in relief, as they had finally made it before they could die of exhaustion. However, there were still no signs of young Master Tunda, Grace, and the captain. The sun is about to set, and Zed knew he could not just sit around and wait for it. He then suggests they begin his ceremony first. However, the woman wonders if the young Master Tunda isn't supposed to go first since Zed is the youngest. Zed questions if there's a rule against it, and if they cannot begin in the order they arrive, considering they shouldn't waste any more time. The woman knew it was reasonable, but she still hesitated. Zed confirms if it is also her first joint right. He suggests that it begin if there is no rule stating that Tunda has to go first, and so the woman eventually agrees. They reach the Arahan family's sacred mausoleum. The woman explains to Zed that once he enters, he will see a grand altar inside, and he must remember that mana is strictly prohibited inside. He must make sure he does not touch anything other than the altar. She then tells him to step inside. Zed gulps. He didn't think he would actually get nervous. Slowly but surely, he begins to make his way towards the mausoleum. He was surprised to find it warm. He makes his way through and is shocked to see what the inside of the sacred mausoleum looks like. It was big, and it's like he has been transported to somewhere else instead. The woman also enters beside him, revealing that she is the only one permitted inside among the servants. She then explains that only members of the Arahan bloodline and the chosen ones can enter this place. She had been pointing to the altar in front of him, revealing that it is where he will put his blood to the test. Zed steps towards the altar but pauses in the moment. A sudden worry begins to hover in his mind. What if this ritual reveals he is not the real Zed Arahan? It is Temud's mausoleum. It is possible. If it sees through that his soul is from another world, what will happen to him? His imagination immediately begins writing worst-case scenarios faster than the internet writing Oscar predictions after a single movie trailer. It is true that this body belongs to an Arahan, though. The woman tells him to use the dagger to make a small cut on his palm. When he sees a trace of blood, he must place his hand upon the altar. After the ceremony, he will be granted the family's clock and insignia. But she watches him zoned out and asks if there is a problem. Zed assures her there is none at all. The woman tells him there is nothing to be afraid of because the cut will heal the moment the ceremony is complete. Zed says it is not that he just wondered if there has ever been a case where the certification failed. The woman was surprised by his question. Zed quickly covers his tracks, saying he was just curious what happens when the certification succeeds. The woman reveals that the altar will light up, and it is a simple process. Though it might be a simple process, it isn't exactly simple for Zed right now. If the pure blood verification fails, then he must face Zenedin's wrath. Bro won't need a funeral because there won't be enough left to bury. However, it is too late to turn back now. He musters up the courage to make a cut on the palm of his hand. He was surprised there was no pain at all. With a nod of encouragement from the woman, he slaps his hand onto the altar. There goes nothing. To his utter shock, the altar begins to light up. Everything turns a mixture of red and black, darkness and blood. A voice whispers that he has come at last, the chosen one. Zed instantly slices his hand away from the altar in shock. The woman urges him to keep his hand on the altar until the ceremony is complete. Zed asks if she did not hear the voice. The woman remains confused and suggests he keep his hand upon the altar because it will be over soon. This makes Zed wonder if he was the only one who heard the voice. He had no choice but to place his hand on the altar once again. He returns to the dark place, hearing the voice once again. It states how it has been waiting for Zed for a long time. Zed couldn't understand how he should respond to it. He begins to think of an answer and wonders who he is talking to. He was stunned to realize that the voice could hear his thoughts. It reveals how it was the one who summoned Zed and who started this world. Zed was unable to believe what he just heard. He questions the voice if he is none other than Temud Arahan. The voice affirms. Zed questions, why did it have to be him? To which the voice reveals he needs someone who always hungers for strength, yet never succumbs to corruption. There is not enough time to answer all the questions Zed had. However, it tells Zed that the stronger he becomes, the more he shall feel its presence. Zed argues that he cannot leave without telling him the reason. Temud addresses him as the chosen one and tells him to remember that he shall always be with him, and with that, Zed gets transported back into reality. The woman watches in amazement as golden light fills the area. She becomes worried because the altar was supposed to glow red, not gold. It was pretty strange because it had never shown any color but red. Zed explains it is because all his brothers have the power of fire. He has probably turned gold because his power is lightning. He then questions if the ceremony is over, considering the light has appeared. The woman agrees. When in doubt, gaslight with confidence. Zed knew there was no way he could tell anyone about the secret behind the golden light. If anyone finds out that Temud's soul resides in him, everyone will come to him. Just the thought of it makes him shiver. The woman officially concludes the pure blood ceremony. She then presents him with the clock and the crest. And so from this moment on, Zed was recognized as the 7th heir candidate of the Arahan family. The scene shifts to Zed checking out his statistics and skills. They were the same as before. He had expected some big changes after the ceremony, but not a single thing had changed. It seems he had way too high expectations. It was now midnight, and there were still no signs of Tunda. No wonder he is so hopeless. Tunda finally reaches the top and is still causing a tantrum. Zed approaches him and suggests he get on with the ceremony already if he is finally here and stop causing trouble. He reveals how it was done ages ago. Tunda was surprised and furious at the same time, unable to believe that he had gone before him. He calls him an insolent prick, reminding Zed that he is the 6th son and should have gone first. Zed scoffs, saying he should have walked faster if he wanted to be first. He suggested he shut up and finish the ceremony, or they would just leave without him. Tunda couldn't believe he was being treated like this and turned to the woman, asking why she let him go first. The woman says it is her duty to conduct the ceremony, and she must report everything that happened today to the Lord. Tunda flinches when he hears this. He apologizes and begs her not to tell the Lord. The woman ignores him and suggests they head inside because the temperature will drop soon up there. As the two make their way inside the mausoleum, Michael approaches Zed, asking if he can have a word with him. Michael then reveals how they sense some movement on their way here, and it is strange because nobody ever comes up here. And what caught his attention was Butler Grace's reaction. It seems she did not react to the presence at all, even though a 6th circle mage ought to have noticed anything he could sense. He confesses how he has a feeling Grace pretended not to notice on purpose. Basically, he was saying that Grace is scheming behind their backs. Zed assures him that he doesn't need to worry about that. Michael becomes shocked, realizing that his 7th heir is already aware of this. Zed confirms his doubts, revealing that there's going to be an ambush on their way down, so they must be prepared for it. Zed hands Michael some weapons, telling him that these are devices that generate a barrier. There are 4 of them, and the barrier will form once all devices are in possession. They're called the Shadowless Barriers, crafted by Lacto at Zed's request. The Shadowless Barriers disable mana inside them, which is a disadvantage for mages but a huge advantage for him. These are high-grade barrier devices. Here, Lacto pulled it off like it was nothing. Zed instructs Michael how they are built for easy placement, so he must spread them out wide when the fight begins, which will make the barriers stretch out as far as they can. Michael obliges his request. Soon, they hear voices thicken and realize the ceremony is over. Rio, on the other hand, was freezing. He found Grace scary as hell, wondering if she was the one trying to kill Zed. He literally jumps out of his wits when Grace asks why he's staring at her. Would he brush it off as nothing? He does not know if this is going to work out well. Hopefully, Zed has got everything planned out. However, he had lost sight of Grace, and she was nowhere to be seen now. He realizes this means the ambush must be about to begin. He decides to warn Zed, but it was too late. They had already been ambushed. The knights began to spread out and prepare themselves for combat. Ryu tearfully begins to rush in the opposite direction, hoping to find Zed. However, he holds in his position and trembles terribly as he spots an arrow making its way towards him. But just before he could die, Zed instantly came to his protection. He had told Ryu to stay back and asked, why did he come all the way here? He suggests the boy pull himself together and hide. Zed takes note of how the ambushers are using support magic. He tells the guards to watch out, because they are not mere bandits and are getting help from a mage. He orders them to form groups of 3 and take them down one by one. And with that, the fight began. Ryu watches the scene unfold in a safe place. He thought support magic was something only 6th circle or higher mages could use. He wonders if this means Zed was actually right about another family being involved in this. Zed also puts up a fierce fight while Ryu hypes him up from the sideline. Zed was having a blast dealing with these noob ambushers. He fights all of them, effortlessly destroying them. Ryu watches him like a proud dad. In the end, Zed and his guards were able to repel the attack without a single casualty thanks to him. However, Zed reveals this is not over yet and they should get back. He reveals that mages will make a move now, so they must get to the slope immediately. The men become confused, not able to understand. They assure Zed that they won't leave him here alone and will fight with him to the end. However, Zed tells them not to do that and instead look after the others. It is because he will go all out now, so he won't be able to protect them. They tried to argue, but Michael silenced them, saying this had already been discussed with the 7th heir, and so they must go protect the others now. He assures them that they should not act rashly and listen to the young master. He is not someone they can hope to protect, so they must just follow the orders. And so while Zed made his way forward along the men, he walked in the other direction. Zed sees no sign of a mage, but he can feel that something is approaching. He then activates his transcendence magic immediately. All of a sudden, there was a 6th circle magic spell cast at him called the Sea Stallion's Wave. It was a giant wave that boomed across the area. Zed was amused to see that this person was going all out from the very start. Sea Stallion's Wave has incredible range and power, but it can be countered. The problem is that Zed wanted to save these a little longer, but he guesses he has no choice. He ordered Michael to set up the barrier now. The knights instantly get into action and do as ordered. The wave continues to soar its way towards them. Zed watches the destruction these perpetrators have caused on the mountain and wonders if they really don't think there will be consequences for this. Thankfully, everyone was okay due to the barrier. This This is where the Arahan family's sacred mausoleum lies, which means if word gets out about damaging the mountain, they will pay dearly. Zed is certain that there must be more to using this magic than just killing him. He soon hears a rustle in the bushes. Grace reveals her presence and asks if he was trying to kill them too. Zed says he gave her too much credit, and she is more incompetent than he imagined. Zed questions if she really thought they would be so sloppy as to let her, a witness, live. Grace tells him to shut up because he does not know anything. However, Zed intervenes, pointing out how they are killers willing to take out even an Arahan, yet they hesitated to kill Grace. Professional gaslighter meets professional hater. Another person reveals their presence, exposing how Zed actually blocked his spell. Grace's demeanor darkens as she accuses this person of betraying her. It turns out it was her sister, the vice captain of the Billy family, Lucre Monet. Clearly, this new woman did not care about blood ties. She asserts that the bond between them ended the moment Grace joined the Arahan family. Grace tries to tell her that she joined this family for one purpose, that is to destroy it. However, Lucre shuts her up, saying that once she is dead, the rest are just small fry. She then activates her powers. However, she quickly draws up a barrier as Zed uses his lightning aura on her. Zed says he made a promise, so Grace cannot die here. Luke's demeanor darkens and she questions, what could a brat like Zed possibly do? She seemed to have clearly underestimated. Zed, on the other hand, grins, saying that spell made quite a scene, loud enough to catch someone's attention. He was right. Luke realizes he is talking about the Black Mirror Squad. Zed is aware that the Black Mirror Squad is everywhere, just not today, but the one he called this time is far greater than they. An awkward silence filled the air as people waited to see Zed's big card. However, no one appears, and Lucre's knights began to wonder if he was just bluffing. Zed was also as confused as they were because his big shot was supposed to come the moment he saw the lightning strike. He regrets trusting the old man. Lucre burst into laughter, saying that the Arahan family never fails to stoop low. Zed remembers how the old man said the Gutra family never breaks a promise and that mercenaries value punctuality. The old man's disciple could die any minute, and he was nowhere to be seen. Lucre was done with games and activated her powers, targeting Zed. However, to her surprise, they are completely dodged by Zed thanks to his subordinate's arrival. The Kinjera triplets. They promised to guard him with their lives and told him not to worry. Zed wasn't even in the mood to say anything, but he was glad that at least they had come. Grace could tell things were getting pretty serious and made a run for it. Lucre says she is pathetic to the very end. She tells her men to take care of the small fries while she goes after Grace. Zed is glad by the stroke of luck and decides to use this chance to wipe some of them out. He tells the triplets to scatter the mage's magic and disrupt their casting so he can close them because they're weak against distance, and so the four of them immediately got to work. The men clearly did not see such power coming. They had been told these were the small fries, but Zed was way too quick for them. Even the triplets were aura farming, and so none of them were enough to beat or even graze the triplets, their lordships. Filled with vigor, Zed intensifies his lightning aura, transcending it throughout the battlefield, eliminating all of the ambushers. The triplets erupted with praises for their lordship. However, Zed's wishes are changed in the men's routine. They were now using a combo spell, which is a way for lower circle mages to cast magic above their level. He knew the remaining ones were barely 4th circle, but with enough training and numbers, they could pull off 9th circle magic. The triplets informed Zed that they cannot break through the barrier. Zed becomes astonished as he realizes something. He yells at the triplets to get away from there and create as much distance as possible. He tells them to hurry up as there is no time to waste. There was a huge explosion that followed. The ambushers smiled in satisfaction, thinking they had done it. They reveal how this is a spell they have mastered to destroy the Arahan family, and there is no escaping it. Zed watches in horror as a huge beast emerges. Zed instantly recognizes it as a sea serpent. The serpent roars as it watches its prey. As for the ambushers, they were having the time of their lives. They're finally about to watch the legendary Arahan brat get ripped apart by their masterpiece. Or that was the plan, at least. After much contemplation, Zed tells the triplets to stay back. However, they refuse to abandon him. Zed asserts that they are after him, so the brothers must stay as far away as they can afford. They get themselves killed for nothing. He believes he can block one attack with the Immortal Gambler trait, but that serpent will keep moving until its summoner cuts the mana flow. The cooldown for the Immortal Gambler is 5 seconds. If he gets hit again before the cooldown ends, he is as good as dead. The best way to counter it would be to break that combo spell, but the barrier makes it tricky. Still, there is hope, as it is 4th circle mages who are burning their mana to maintain that 9th circle dragon. So he wonders if holding out 5 seconds at a time will still give him a chance. He activates his Transcendence magic again, deciding to just keep holding out for now. Activates Persistent Challenger trade and goes for it. He instantly begins to hit the dragon, causing it to roar in pain. It immediately begins to lunge towards Zed. Zed was amazed by its speed. He ended up getting injured. The ambushers were shocked because this attack should have taken the Arahan down, yet he was still alive. They decide to just hit him one more time. They go for it again, but the Zeds are prepared this time. He continues to dodge the dragon's attack. However, he kept getting swayed by the dust cloud. Luckily, the creature's attacks take time to wind up. In that case, he was confident he could pull this off. He continued activating his traits again and again, annoying the ambushers, and they wondered how this guy was still fine. Getting impatient, they decide to finish him off with a decisive strike. And so the dragon lunges towards Zed once again, who wonders if it is about to shoot Dragon's breath. He seemed to have guessed right, but he finds it absurd, wondering just how much training the men went through to reach this level. It seems the Billy family has really been waiting for this moment. The moment to drive a blade straight into the Arahan family's heart. The men were trying their best to keep the dragon at bay, telling Zed this is not something he can dodge. As for Zed, he knew he would be dead if the strike landed. The immortal gambler protects him from single hateful attacks, but not sustained one. He grits his teeth in fury, and just for the sake of one more chance, he activates the lightning strike again and again and again. He continued doing so to the extent that he burnt through all his mana. He was at his limit now. After casting spells back to back, he thinks he is starting to get the hang of dual casting. He couldn't understand what the point was when he was close to dying. He wonders what will happen to him if he dies here, and whether he will be able to go back to where he was, or will he just disappear. Zed watches the dragon's breath making its way closer and closer to him. Ryu watches in horror, seeing his friend at death's door. He tried to go there and help him, but people kept him at bay. To their shock, the seventh heir was still alive, but the scene was pretty weird. The battlefield had turned dark and bloody. As for Zed, let's just say his strongest backup had arrived inside him. Bro really had an ancient final boss installed as factory settings. Zed walks toward the creature once again, but this time feels different. The ambushers wonder why the serpent is not moving and is acting strangely all of a sudden. It is true, the serpent whimpered as it watched Zed. They were doing everything right, yet they still could not understand what was going wrong. Zed continues to make his way forward towards his serpent and ruthlessly orders him to return to his place. The dragon instantly listens and turns back. He begins to walk towards the ambushers, trying to unsummon itself. Imagine spending years mastering forbidden magic, only for your final boss to get grounded by one sentence. The ambushers knew the spell was going to break any second, and they wondered what kind of trick Zed had pulled to do this. Just couldn't understand how it did. Everything went downhill. Zed, or rather someone else, checks the body, saying that it is pretty fine. A mix of power has made its way towards it, attacking him at once. But to the ambusher's shock, Zed manages to nullify the magic effortlessly. The men deluded themselves into thinking it was just a fluke and continued to attack him from all sides. However, the boy finds it pathetic. The ambushers began to panic, realizing this was truly the power of the Arahan family. If this is the strength of his bloodline, then all their efforts were for nothing. A mere pipe dream. They still couldn't believe the youngest of them could fight off an entire group. The leader decides to attack once again, ordering the others to put all their mana into it, giving it their all. And so once again, they began to make a last-ditch effort. However, this new person was truly amazing, and the ambushers were intimidated. They realize this is mana interference, which is even beyond mana nullification. It is clear that we do not stand a chance against this guy and need to get out of here as soon as possible. The boy's voice, still coarse, calls out to them disappointedly. All of a sudden, the fleeing ambushers freeze in their spots, unable to move or control their mana. They looked back to see Zed approaching them. They had clearly underestimated the Arahan family. They instantly get down on their knees, begging for mercy, promising to never challenge the Arahan family again. There was a strange ruthlessness in Zed's eyes. It was evident it was not him. It was a higher entity who declares that Arahan shows no mercy. And with that, he used managed circuits on the ambushers, who quickly clutched their hearts in pain. They ended up losing their mana. Mana interference is the intentional hijacking of the mana circuits flowing through the body. With it, one can twist, sever, or even destroy the circuits. And the destruction of mana circuits brings an unbearable emptiness, something mana users find even more excruciating than losing a limb. Lucre had now returned with Grace trapped. She was shocked to see the destroyed land, wondering what had happened while she was gone. The men fall under some kind of group illusion spell. Her eyes widened in shock as they landed on Zed, wondering if he was the one who caused all of this. Still not understanding the magnitude of this destruction, she decides to deal with him personally. To her shock, her attack ends up being Uno reversed by her opponent, and so she ends up getting stabbed by her own power. They pierce through her entire body. She ends up dead. Zed stares into space blankly. The voice then calls out to Zed, saying that he has answered the call as the chosen one and will have to pay the price for this power. And with that, Zed's eyes close and he loses consciousness. Turns out borrowing power from an ancient legend comes with slightly worse side effects than forgetting to read the terms and conditions.